Hey, well, today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast, we have Nick from LawnsInGoodNick, and I've been looking forward to this episode. We talked on the phone a couple of times actually, but we talked a few weeks ago. And firstly, you were recommended by Ben from Lawn Tips. That's the first thing. I mean, that's a good commendation just to start with, right?
I'll take that.
Yeah, no, I would too. The second thing, though, is that we had a really good conversation. I think it's going to be a super interesting podcast because I'm clueless on Instagram. I'm clueless on a lot of the social media stuff. And you seem to be, maybe not, I don't know. How would you say yourself? Because, you can overhype things on the internet a little bit, but clearly you know what you're doing because you've got, a lot of TikTok followers, a lot of Instagram followers. I've got about 300. How many do you have on Instagram?
On Instagram, we in the mid 63,000s, ticking towards 64,000. TikTok is just under 70,000, but not my preferred platform. TikTok, I'm not the biggest fan of that one. And on YouTube as well, I've got just under 1,700 subscribers. So from about 22 or 3 videos. So, yeah.
So when I asked you to come on, you were like, I don't really want to, be a lawn guy because, I'm not really a lawn guy, even though everybody knows you as having an absolutely amazing, fantastic lawn, right? Like, if you guys haven't checked it out, go on LawnsInGoodNick on Instagram because you're doing some pretty amazing stuff there. So clearly you know something about lawn, but you're like, oh, but it's not my profession. And we were like, well, what if we talked about Instagram? It's like, bam, yes. Because it seems like you've really got that. And I think it's going to be super helpful. I mean, I just like it, but I'm interested in it. I like learning this stuff, but I think there's a lot of small businesses as well that they would love to grow in Instagram, understand how to use that for their business, and just a few of us who are just interested. So anyway, we're going to shoot the breeze on everything else as well in between. But that's why I'd like to have you on. So thanks for coming on, Nick, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for I've been enjoying listening to the podcast as well. I think when you first contacted me, I was super busy at the time. So it's probably been a while, but in that time, I've been able to listen to all the episodes and that sort of thing, which has probably even more so made me a bit like, I feel like I'm not worthy. But yeah, definitely been enjoying just being a listener to the podcast as well. So it's great what you're doing, and it's a great platform for people that are interested in all this sort of thing. So yeah, it's great to be on.
You're just telling me that because I'm here, but behind my back, you'd be like, that Luke guy with only his 300 and something followers, he is not worthy of my presence.
I'm just waiting for you to secretly have Uber Eats me a Zinger box. I'm right next to the front door in this study.
Oh, wait, we've had your address. Yeah. Actually, no, we're talking off air about movies and stuff, but here's another thing, because I don't watch much movies, for those who weren't somehow listening in on our conversation before, for the, maybe the Chinese spy balloons were, but no, I don't really watch movies. And the other thing I've never done in my life, I have never ordered anything on an Uber Eats or a DoorDash or anything like that. I've never done that before. Never.
Yep. It's dangerous. I feel like the chips always come soggy, no matter where they're from, Red Rooster, wherever. That's one problem that I've got personally. And I'm like 8 or 9 minutes from a heap of different places you can order from. And it always seems to come soggy. But the churros are always good because my wife seems to order them once a week. It'll be 9 o'clock at night and a random person knocks on the door and I'm like,
right.
Darling, what's going on here?
Yeah.
As long as she's ordered me some as well.
Yeah, exactly. We got some pizza the other night and Carrie was buying it. Carrie's my wife. And I was like, are you gonna, like, she ordered it, right? So I was like, are you going to go, like, get it soon? Like, surely it'd be ready. And she's like, no, it's getting delivered. And I was like, what? Like, are you wasting money? Like, not like, not like that too strongly, but, I was like, what? We're getting something delivered? And she was like, it was free. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's fine. But yeah, unless it's free. Now she has, like, just to be clear, she has DoorDash stuff or Uber Eats or whatever, but I've never got the app. I've never done anything like that myself personally.
So consume the goods, but haven't, done the
I'll
audit.
eat the food for sure, no doubt about that.
Yeah, yeah, fair
I'd probably
call.
just
Fair call.
probably prefer to go through a drive-through and get a cheeky little extra thing or two for myself before I even get home.
It's been
Anyways,
super handy on some days where I'm flat out like doing stuff to the house, like renovations or
yeah,
lawn care work or whatever, where I haven't done it very many times, but there's, the odd time where it's like, all right, I'm starting to get hungry, order something, 40 minutes later, half an hour later, it turns up. Don't have to stop and heat things up or cook stuff. Convenience. It's good.
yeah,
It does
yeah.
what it says
No,
on the packet.
no. I mean, it's one of those things now. I don't really care about it, but I'm sure. I don't know. I've got to keep my streak alive now, almost. See how long I can go without ever having to order it. And become one of those defiant. What's the word I'm looking for? Stubborn. People. It's like you should do it. No, I won't. For no
Old
good
man.
reasons
Yeah.
to convince me. Exactly.
Old
I'm a
man
bit of a
yelling at the
grumpy old man
clouds.
sometimes. Before we get into Instagram, right? Some people who follow you will be well aware that your wife just leveled up in terms of best wife ever in the world status when it comes
Mm.
to 30th birthdays. You just turned 30, and there's an Instagram reel that you can see. But she bought you a MoMaster for your birthday, right?
Yeah. Yep. She
Now,
did well.
Tell me about that story. How did it feel? What happened from your perspective? Because this is just good, interesting conversation. I love it. I mean, I'm not a gift person myself, but I can totally see how, especially your reaction. What did you feel like when that was going on?
Pure disbelief. Absolutely pure disbelief. From my perspective, what happened was um, I had asked for new kitchen scales. That's all I wanted for my birthday. She'd said to me for ages, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "Kitchen scales. These ones are crap." Like, especially because I use those ones as well to weigh fertilizer and stuff too. So
Yep.
I'm like, and you pour it out, and then it turns out anyway. So I was like, that's all I wanted. So from my perspective, I got my little kitchen scales. Kate took the boys to Bunnings as well, and took them into an aisle, and they just got to pick anything they wanted. So I
For
got
you?
one sprinkler
I
spike.
was going to
It's
say,
like
I was
that's
like,
good for nothing, but
yeah,
thanks very much,
exactly.
boys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I
You
was
got
like,
to,
yeah, cool, no worries. Like, yeah, like, well, I was happy. That's fine. And then she's like, oh, actually, I think there's one more present. So we go out to the shed, and in this giant crate is, a beautiful MoMaster. But from her perspective, because, moving to the new house, it was a big sort of consideration. And we were talking about that just before about moving to our new house. We've been here since October, so 8 months or something like that. And even we had a 4-month settlement as well. So yeah, it's probably a year ago, pretty much, that our offer
right.
got accepted on the house. So at the time, the entire grass space was about 750 square meters, which I've now got down to 500. There's a section where there's a sand pit, a slide, and there's going to be, some other bits and pieces in there for the boys, some fruit trees and stuff as well. And
Yep.
then alongside the pool's eventually going to be like fire pit and stuff like that. Right now it's a little section that I just rotary mow. But either way, it was like, all right, this much bigger lawn, my 20-inch cylinder mower is just not going to be, not going to cut it. Having said that, it takes 25 to 30 minutes for a single cut, which to me is time that I'm happy to spend.
Yeah.
There's people that spend a lot longer than that in a day, in a week, playing Xbox. So that's fine with me. But yeah, so it was like, I need a bigger mower. So yeah, I played golf with a mate in January, and he said that he was subtly trying to get information out of me about what sort of mower and
Right.
what size and all that sort of stuff. So that goes back, 6 months at least that she'd contacted him about it. So yeah, it all progressed. And
So he
then
was
I
like
believe
the
it's Luke.
mole on the inside. He was the double agent.
Yeah, he and another mate. Yeah, so I believe it's Luke at MoMaster is his name. He was very helpful with Kate in talking about the details. In the end, the biggest considerations or the biggest things they were tossing up was 26 or 28 inches
Yep.
in cylinder width. And so yeah, in the end, finished up with the high cut model, the 26-inch HC26, 10 blade reel, which is pretty crisp.
It is.
And yeah, it's an absolute beast. But yeah, it got delivered to my best mate's dad's place. because I needed a forklift and stuff for it about a month before my birthday.
Yeah.
And then I went off to footy training the night before. And then they came in with the mower and unloaded it. And then the next morning, Kate was like, I'm always up early cooking breakfast. She's always, she can sleep through if the boys wake up and whatever. So I always get up with them. That's no problem.
Yeah.
And she like gets up and she's like, I'm like, you don't have to be up early just because it's my birthday or whatever. She's like, no. Because she was really stressed that I was just randomly going to go out to the shed or whatever because, I just get up and do stuff. But she's like hanging out and she's like so stressed.
Yeah.
But eventually got it all delivered and looking at it and just, can't believe it. Can't believe it's sitting in my shed, to be honest. It's a pretty insane machine.
It is. I'm just like, I'm not good with secrets like that, right? Never have been. I don't know how well I would go. Like if I'd bought such a big thing, I could keep it a secret until it was in the shed, and then I'd be like, I've got to leave because my poker tell. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I can hold it in.
Well, the mate who I play golf with, he Kate said to me a few months ago, like he had a big life update, and she said to me, "Oh, this has happened," and I was like, "Oh, really? Oh, how come you were talking to him?" And she's like, "Oh, because my wife runs a finance broking company. She's a director. She's got 20 staff. She's killing it. But anyway, so she's like, "Oh, he wants to refinance." So we were just chatting. We're just on the phone, just chatting, and he told me, and she's like, phew. Like,
you almost
got out of that one. Luckily, he's a client as well. So she was able to say, we're just talking about work stuff. Yeah, so she's like, crap, apparently that was one of the closer calls. But yeah, so it's all been pretty well done on that end. Keep it a surprise. But yeah, insane surprise. She's an incredible lady, that one.
So there's the cynical side of me, and I posted this in the comment section on your video. It's like, there's an act of generosity, and then there's also an act of how would you call it? Setting the standard so that you have to fulfill it for the next birthday present. Do you feel pressure now? Because is it just like, Kate? I mean, I know that she probably is just very generous, but there's also part of me where it's just like, man, if I had that present, I would feel pressure that I like. What do you get her now? Like, how do you live up to that? Or is it just you just give up? White flag. Okay, kids, go down the bunting aisle for mum as well, and we've got a door hinge and a wire brush. Here you go.
Yep. Well, actually, to be honest, there is a lot of pressure, and I think that she would love a Mowmaster verticutter. That's what I've been thinking.
Right. Oh, okay.
So,
and
can you
also,
actually blank this part out? Because November might get her a verticutter. But yeah, like she's the most generous person, and completely not the sort of person who would get to her birthday and be like, well, you better be getting me something good. Like the complete opposite person of that. So just the pure enjoyment for her of doing that. So yeah, I mean, it better be something good. I better, do something nice for her as well. She's a bit of a hard person to buy for as well, but yeah.
Especially if she runs a finance company. You got to be very creative with how you're going to go about anything big, right? Because you couldn't go through her if you were going to finance something.
Look, I think maybe there's she's now got like a 10 square meter piece of grass out the front of her new office. So maybe I'll have to take the 26-inch Mowmaster down there and mow that a few times just to satisfy the ATO.
Yeah. No, I think you probably would need just for that one. You probably would need like a Toro triplex or something like that. $60,000 ride-on cylinder mower.
Just to be efficient, to get it done in one pass.
Yeah, no, you don't want to waste time or anything, And look, as you've got it, you may as well use it at your house. You know what I mean? And then you can use your Mowmaster to, have a lower cut, use it as a golf green or something like that. Make a little fun putting green in your back. Like obviously, clearly, it's all necessary. This isn't
I
just
think Kate's clients would love to turn up for a meeting and have a little, little 10 square meter putting green out the front of the office. I reckon that'd be
They
good.
probably would. Do you know, I reckon you might also she might be good if she she needs an aerator too, because you don't want to hire that. That would be because I mean obviously you're
Yeah.
going to use it every single day, not just like maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So I mean,
Yeah.
maybe after the podcast we'll keep brainstorming ideas on what present to get your wife, which clearly
Yeah.
is 100% her interest and has no selfish
Yeah.
motivations whatsoever.
She would absolutely love one of those, like a master top dresser, the Eco 250, is it? I think she'd
Yeah,
need one
yeah,
of those. Yeah.
yeah.
Just in case, I don't know, the carpet in the office gets uneven or something like that and she needs to just level it out. And
Yeah.
potentially, I don't know. I think we're onto something.
We might be. Did Dev tell you the story? You might have heard it on the podcast with Ben. I mean, Ben is so blessed. And I remember I was over there and I was like, have you ever thought about getting an Eco 250? And he was like, oh, I don't know, man. Like it's, would I use it that much? I don't, yeah. And obviously he made the green. He's like, oh, I probably need it. And he sent them a message and I think he might have already had it in the back of mind, but I think I jigged his thought process when I was over there, and then he just sent the message like, "Yeah, you can have one for free," and then
Yep.
sent it over. And so I'm like,
Yep.
"Hey Ben, how much commission do I get on that thought? Can you send it over here? I'll use it for a week or something every year. What do I get out of this?"
Yeah. I reckon you at least own one of the wheels or something like that. Put your signature on it.
A corner of the foam handlebar, comfort grip, whatever it is. There we go. I'll take my claim on that. Friends, I hope you're going well. I need some help. Believe it or not, it takes a lot of resources to run this podcast, specifically Pepsi Max and Zinger boxes. More than you would believe. Probably biblical proportions of Pepsi Max and Zinger boxes to run this podcast. And so what I've done is I've actually set up a Patreon account. This is not a joke. This is very serious. I have a Patreon account and we need help with the funds to help keep running this podcast. So what you can do, if you love this podcast and you want it to continue into the future for a long time, the best way to do that is to very simply head to this Patreon link and you'll be presented with 2 options. Either to support the podcast by buying a Pepsi Max every month or to support the podcast by buying us a Zinger box every month. It actually is going to help run the podcast. Obviously, the Pepsi Max and the Zinger box stuff is just a little bit of a lighthearted joke. But in all seriousness, head over there if you love the podcast and you want it to keep going into the future for as long as possible. Sign up and help us out in that way. Let's get back to the podcast. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention the bio is on the Instagram description and in the description of the videos. That was the key part, and I forgot that. Anyways, back into the video.
I'm already thinking about my spring reno and the top dressing and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, look, we did it by hand, did 6Q by hand with 2 guys from Lawn Lads. They came and helped, but I'm already thinking about that, and I'm like, look, I feel like I really should put the call out for Eco 250. Anyone I think that there's a place 50 minutes away from me I know of that has one, but do I want to do an hour and 40 of driving? And I don't know. I need to toss that up. But yeah, if you're listening, Eco 250, hit me up.
And then send it over my way. No, I reckon you might find that there might be a contractor in your area who has one who, and let's get into the Instagram side of it now, because this is one of the things about Instagram, which is cool, is that people will do things, will help people out for exposure, because if you're helping somebody, let's say I was over there and I had an Eco 250 and you sent me a message and hey, would Silverstone Gardening come and help me out and do the top dress? Yeah, sweet, let's do it. Because it's the cost to get it out there and have it's fun, and there's all these benefits and stuff. It's just people might be willing to help that sort of stuff. Do you do that with trades a lot? Do you get people helping out just because of shout outs and things like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess to get into it properly, I've worked with I think 14 different companies so far.
Wow.
But I feel like I'm missing some. And they vary from being, hey, we'll send you some stuff. And, it's like, yeah, cool. And I'll put it
Yep.
on my story or whatever, to, contracts and approving content and, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, look, like if that, in that example, if there was someone who, I don't know, listens to this, or I'll probably put something out there in the next month or two when I'm really starting to think about it and say, is there anyone in the area? And if someone's like, hey, yeah, I'd do it, if you can, put up X amount of content or whatever, and I'll just come and do it, or we'll do it together, and I'll, make a reel, and I'll make a YouTube video, and, whatever, recommend you to people in the area. Yeah, definitely always open to those sorts of things. And it's a fortunate position to be in, to, not be putting out the cost for all these things. But yeah, definitely, it'd also be great to, if there's other people around doing it, that are doing a great job as well, then, there's definitely a market for it. And the more people that are around that want a nice lawn, like, yeah, definitely.
I feel like with the collaborative reels as well, which for those who aren't on Instagram, we've probably lost everybody who's not on Instagram. They're probably like, why would I want to listen to a podcast on Instagram? But look, for those who are on Instagram, yeah, exactly. You're missing out probably. It's probably a great opportunity. But there's this thing called collaborative reels. This is the extent of my knowledge on Instagram, right? So this is why we got you on. But you can basically share a reel and not just tag somebody in it, but like have somebody as a co-creator, which is what I've been doing with the podcast, right? Because that's exactly the type of content it's for. Like we make this podcast together. Here's a little short of what we're doing, a little short clip of it. But there's sorts of things. I feel like it's less pushy, when you have somebody come and actually make a video with you, actually be there with you. So like if somebody was to come and help you do a service on your lawn, whatever it was, and then to make a collaborative reel where you're both on it, it sort of feels like it's a real partnership, not like some cold, calculated, accounting, marketing decision sort of thing. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think that's something from being a social media user for a lot longer than I've been, creating the content. Is that Pepsi Max in that glass?
It is.
Isn't it? It's like 9 a.m. over there, isn't it?
It is, but I've got to drink something, otherwise, as you can hear, it's so early. My voice is going to be like all phlegmy, and I didn't wake up that
coffee.
long ago, to be honest.
There's coffee.
I don't drink coffee. This is the other thing that's weird about me. I don't like watching movies. I haven't ordered. I don't drink coffee.
Well, that's the end of the podcast. See you later.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have friends. What else about me?
Now we're starting to nectar of the gods, coffee. What was I saying? You asked me a question.
Collaborative reels.
I said I was saying about being a user a long time before a creator. So yeah, I think with a lot of the content I create, whether it's branded stuff, whether it is just normal stuff, I try to think of it from the perspective of me and what engages me as a user. And you can tell within 2 or 3 seconds if it's like, do you have problems with your lawn? Well, stop now, because I've got this great, and it's like, skip,
Yes,
so it's something I've made a real point of and really try to do. Sometimes it's hard. Like HoseLink, I've got a ongoing agreement with HoseLink, and last month it was like, hey guys, we really want to push the fact we've got an end of financial year sale, so it's a bit hard to make it without saying, hey guys, like HoseLink I still obviously do the best, but HoseLink have got some great stuff. Like they honestly sell heaps of good stuff. I've used heaps of it, and they've got a 15% off sale. Like, go there. It's hard to deliver that in a really natural way. But the month before that, the reel that I made, I was using their manual garden shears. First time using them. Please, to any of the gardening people listening to this, don't judge me too hard on this, because not doing the best job. But it's like I call them lollipop trees, the Ficus hilli, I think they're called. Really big leaf. I've learnt, the bigger the leaf, the harder it is to get that shape, which makes me feel better.
Was that from a certain podcast that you learnt that with Craig?
Nah, no.
Oh, you didn't hear on it?
No, I did. Yeah. Yeah. I
On the
think
podcast we
was
talked
it
about that.
Southern Cross Gardens? Was that
Yeah.
the first? Yeah. So anyway, so at the start of that reel, I said, if you want to see an absolute expert landscaper or gardener masterfully shape these hedges, then this is not the video for you. You better scroll. Are they gone? Okay, so here's what I'm doing. This is kind of what I'm going to try and do, and like
Yeah.
snip it up. And I'm just kind of talking about it while I'm doing it, and then I'm like, these are from Hoselink. I'm liking them. They're sharp. They're doing a good job. This is how it looks. I'm going to get better at this over time. And, really like that ended up with over 100,000 views
Oh
on
wow.
Instagram, which as a branded thing is quite good numbers, because I find sometimes even people, and I do it myself as a user, sometimes you flick onto something and you see paid partnership and you're just
Yes.
like, unless it catches you in that first few seconds. And so the fact that I was proud of that. I was proud of that way I delivered that, and a lot of the other ones that I've done to keep it natural and engaging, to be like, yes, this is branded content, but it's good stuff. If you're in the market for this, here's what I'm using. It's good. You can see me using it, and hey, this is where I got it from. Like, if you want to get it as well, this is where you can go. So trying to keep it in that sort of way is something that I'm really trying to do, and I think it seems to be working at the moment.
I think with some people will be listening to this going, well, how is that relevant to me? Because I'm never going to get enough people to get a brand deal. But the reality is that if you are running a small business, you are the brand deal, right? You are trying to support yourself through Instagram, and it's really important to come across in a way that isn't pushy, salesy, over the top. And that's, I think, where most people really struggle with Instagram. At least this is what I've seen, is that there's a few things, but it's very common for either people to go when they post, they come across as pushy, as or sometimes desperate. That can be the word as well. Like, and maybe they're not actually desperate, and maybe they're not actually pushy, but they come across that way. So there's that to start with. But the second thing as well is just being able to understand that people will look at you and they might think of you as some sort of, well, this guy's a marketing genius, or he knows how to do this. He's I'm just an average bloke, the person listening to this podcast. So let's go back to the beginning before we get into techniques of actually how to make reels and what you do, what you think of, how you position yourself so you don't come across as desperate, pushy, lots of stuff. You weren't a lawn guy. You weren't a marketing guy. You used to be a school teacher, right?
Yeah, PE teacher. Yeah,
And
secondary
and
PE
how?
teacher.
So 63,000 Instagram followers or something like that. You said, is that 63-ish? You said before.
Yeah, I think it's tick under 64 at the moment. I think
Yeah. So let's see if the 300 subscribers that I have, they're probably already all following you, to be honest.
might come across.
Yeah, I might have 12 for that haven't. All of my family members. No. The what I was gonna say with you started this when did you say you started your actual Lawns and Good Nick page, right?
Yeah, my first post was the 2nd of October 21.
So not even 2 years.
Yeah, tick under
And
2 years.
This is why I think this is a really good podcast for people who are wanting to grow this, because you're a school teacher. Well, you were a school teacher. You've stopped that now. And in basically, in 1 year and 9 months or whatever it is now, you've gone from 0 to 60,000 followers. You haven't sold your soul to the devil, looking like you're some, selfish, cold, calculated. You get the idea. It's actually an enjoyable person to watch when you're doing it. You don't come across as too smart for other people. It's a nice channel, and I think a lot of people would like that style of branding. Where some other people, they might have great followings, but it doesn't come across as friendly, approachable, which is something that you've done. And it's I guess it demystifies some of the feeling that people have about social media and be like, oh, I could never work out the algorithm and how can I do this? I'm not an expert. And so they just give up. And so I think you're going to be quite an encouraging podcast for some people out there who are like, hold on a second. If this guy can do it without any background, as far as I'm aware, unless you've got something you can tell me, but you got no background in this, you've made something of it, and it could be a great avenue for some people out there who are wanting to go down this path. So what did you do that took you, in a nutshell, and then we can look into it a little bit more, what were the sort of things that you did that really helped you in the beginning? What were some of the good moves you made in the beginning? Because right now, it might be a little bit different, but someone starting out like myself or like other people on here, maybe a couple of 100 to 1,000 followers. Tell me the story.
I think, like, in terms of building the following, has been enjoying what I'm doing, really, and consistency. I think they're two big things. So in terms of consistency, I would say that, like, something I started when I first started the account, my wife convinced me to start it. Was
Right.
Yeah, it was.
So
Also,
she gave you my master and your career. I mean, mate, you are really, what's the word?
Yep. There's actually, because I was getting into the lawn care more and more. There's actually a really funny video from 3-4 months before I started the account where I'm holding Hudson. He was a tiny baby, so yeah, like May 21, and Oz Post had turned up, and they rode the bike down across the lawn through this package at the wall next to the front door, and then drove off again. And I'm on the phone to Oz Post. There's these videos that are absolutely hilarious, where I'm like, yep, this guy, he just turned up, and she's absolutely losing it. But yeah, anyway, so it started, it was getting into lawn care and really enjoying it. Actually, do you know what? Going through last night and kind of looking at a few things in my feed to prepare for today, I was like, I feel like I've been doing this for ages. I feel like I've been doing it for such a long time, talking on camera. And I'm like, the first time that Instagram heard my voice was the 10th of June. It's the first time I did a talk. That's like just over a year ago, which is wild. But talking about...
Let me put this up there. Yeah. This is it here. Here you go. Look with all the events.
Look at that. But yeah, anyway, so my wife convinced me to start. She posted it on her social media platform. Like, she's currently got 11,000 followers of her own, and she had, a few at the time. And so it was a thing, what should it be called? And her followers are suggesting names and stuff. So that's how we got to LawnsInGoodNick.
Don't tell me your wife also gave you the name. She's given you your career, the Mo Master. She can't give you anything else, can she?
Yeah.
She's too generous.
She did the question box and got it in there. But yeah, so I mean, I started out and I was like, to get back to consistency, was like, all right, I'm not going to go 3 days without posting something, because I know for me, as a user, where I was like, if I click onto someone's profile and I see that the last time they posted was 6 months ago, I'm like, well, why would I hit follow? Because,
right,
you don't post. So I was like, all right, at least every 3 days. And I stuck to that. I think I've stuck to that pretty spot on. So
I'm writing these things down. So the first thing is consistency every 3 days. Is that like a formula thing, or is that just your gut feel?
It's just whatever you can. Well, in diet and exercise, it's like the best diet is the one that you'll stick to. The best exercise program is the one that you'll stick to. So it doesn't matter if it's CrossFit, if it's veganism, if it's whatever. Like, whatever you'll stick to is good. So if you can stick to one reel and one feed post a week, awesome. If you can stick to 5 posts a week, then awesome. It's like whatever's attainable for you is good. So I just picked a number. Basically, I was like, 3-ish posts a week is where I want to start, and that's just what I'm going to set for myself. Now I sort of post 6 or 7 reels a week at night and 3 or 4 photos on different mornings of the week. So the frequency is definitely increased. But yeah, just to me, setting an attainable kind of schedule. And so, yeah, it was kind of like, even in the discussions to start the page, was like, yeah, but I don't want my face on there. Like, I just want to post nice pictures of my
Right.
lawn. And so clearly it's just snowballed from there.
Well,
But yeah,
let's
I guess in terms of, sorry, you go.
Well, no, I was going to say, like, do you? We'll talk about like the awkwardness in a second because I think that's relatable to a lot of people. Some people feel like, oh, I'm putting myself out there, and some people they love it. They love being on camera. But before we get into that, so with your consistency and your timing, my feel is that you can post too much. Like, what do you think on that? Because
Definitely, yeah.
there's a guy that I follow actually on the podcast page. He's a gardener doing just reels and stuff like that of work he's done in Australia. I'm not going to name who it is. Seems like a nice person. Seems like they do really good work. But I don't go on Instagram that much. And so when I'm on there every second day or something like that, it's like he's posted like 3 or 4 new things. I don't know how many he actually has posted, but it feels like it's just I'm getting slammed with all this content, and because it's not, it's all the same thing. It's him doing jobs, right? It feels like I've almost unfollowed him,
Yeah.
and I feel bad because he seems like a really nice guy, which is probably what's holding me
Yeah.
on, But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think definitely, again, as a user, you can sometimes get lost when people post so much content, especially if you need to kind of scene, especially if it's a flow on of the content. Um,
Yep.
Allet Cylinder was actually in the UK, like their page, it takes a lot for me to unfollow, but similar reason. It was like they post like 6, 7, 8 times a day.
Oh,
So much
whoa.
content. I liked it. There's posts that I'd see and be like, I like seeing this, but
Yep.
it's just so much. So yeah, I mean, if you are like, and if you're an individual person and you want to post that much and you enjoy posting that much, you're going to have people who like that as well, and your follow count is going to reflect it. And if people are not liking it, well, your page is probably not going to grow. So yeah, I guess that comes down to how much do you care about pleasing people. To me, I feel like my amount is fairly trackable. I feel like probably most people at some stage of the night will jump in bed and jump onto their phone, and they'll pretty much every night, depending on cooperation from the kids at bedtime and how organized I've been during the day to line up the post.
Yeah.
Between 7:30, there's going to be a video from me, and it might be a couple of minutes of talking about a project, or it might be 20 seconds of a striping reel or an edging reel that's just satisfying to watch. But I'd like to think that mine is pretty followable from that perspective.
Yeah, I do think it is.
So
This is
yeah,
my opinion. Well,
yeah, well, thanks. But
two
yeah, it
things there.
depends.
Does timing matter? I know some people. I'm not like this at all, right? Which might be one of my issues. Because I'm going to ask you later, is what would you change about the way I'm going about Instagram, or am I perfect in every way, shape, and form? Second option is a pretty good answer. Actually. No, I'm joking. I want to know what you. I want to hear what your critiques are. We'll do that like probably in a while, but I just go. I work pretty late, right? So when I finish a podcast, usually I'm editing that after the kids go to bed, and I'm doing it and uploading everything. So it might be like sometimes it's often like somewhere between 9:30 and maybe 11:30 at night. Sometimes it's been like 1 a.m. in the morning, Perth time. I'll upload something, and so I just post it everything everywhere. I'll post
Yeah.
and I'm just done. And then I go to bed and I wake up and I go to work the next day and I sort of forget about it. Do you think that would be affecting? Because the way I think about it is it's out, so I'll just tell everybody it's out because I don't schedule anything. I'm just like when it's out, it's out. Would I be
Yeah.
better off scheduling it? Do you think would I see much better results? And would the users, let's say they're doing the same thing, they're doing a job, they finish their job and they just posted it at 9:45 in the morning, straight after they finish the job. Would they be better off waiting?
Like I feel like there are times of the week where things do better. Like to me, Sunday night is a time slot where I will post something that I think if I've got like 4 or 5 things in my drafts or floating around, I'll be like,
Right.
I'll probably pick something that's fairly engaging that I think is going to do well, because I reckon Sunday night is a really good time. Saturday night, not so much. I sometimes don't bother with a Saturday night. Friday night can be a bit iffy.
Okay.
But yeah, to me, like you said, once the content's up there, it's up there, and people will get on there. I just think it depends a bit as well, because it depends what your audience is like. Because
Right.
I would say that an Australian audience, more so during the day, is at work or doing stuff.
Yeah.
Busy. To me, I am not on social media a heap during the day. It's more so kids are in bed, dishwasher's stacked, go to bed, and then we,
Yeah, that's the
laying
three
there.
priorities.
Yeah, get those things sorted.
Yeah. Everything else
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Don't need to
yeah,
kiss the wife. Don't need to eat my dinner. As long as the kids are in bed and the dishwasher's stacked. No, I get what you
yeah.
mean.
So like, yeah, I guess for me, like that's to me, that's when suits me to post as well. Around
Yes,
that time
I agree.
frame, that's when works for me to actually, type it out and put it up. Um, I mean, yeah, so it depends on that, because still sometimes when I post, it's still that dinner time rush is just starting for you over in Perth. I get a pretty equal amount of followers from both Australia and the US. So when I'm posting, it's probably is it like the middle of the night before or early morning,
Dang.
7 p.m. ish here is like, I think, the middle of the night in the US. But it's still the same thing, like they're going to see it eventually. So I think, like, people talk about algorithms and all this sort of stuff. To me, I think the consistency of knowing that I'm gonna, like, there's people that I follow that, I don't know if you know B Ghetto, who works at a school in Melbourne. Really good stuff, and he's like posting daily day in the life of a groundsman stuff, preparing
Oh,
cricket
right.
pitches and stuff like that. And I'd go on to TikTok to reshare my reel on there, and bang, first thing in my feed is because he posts at a similar time. I
Right.
always watch that video the whole way through. So I open my phone at 7:30, bang, that's the first thing there. TikTok knows that I'm going to watch that whole video, which is what it wants you to do. It wants you to stay there and watch the video. So, that's what
Yes.
it shows me, because it gives me that consistency. So, yeah, I think at the end of the day, if you post good stuff, people are going to see it, and it's going to stay in the news feed and all that sort of stuff. So I think ultimately posting good, engaging, informative, satisfying, whatever you're going for, that's the main part. And to me, does it make a difference? I don't know. I just feel better about having a bit of a routine with it, just how it works in with my life and when I'm doing it and all that sort of thing. I think there's probably something to be said for it, but yeah, certainly not, inside the Instagram algorithm with an in-depth knowledge of it, I guess.
Well, I did hear Mr. Beast once say about the YouTube algorithm that content creators need to replace the word algorithm with viewer, because the algorithm really just tells you what the viewers are doing, right? And
Yeah,
he says a lot of people overrate how good their content is, and so they think, oh, my content is great, must be the algorithm. And he's just saying, no, it's probably that your content isn't that good. It's probably that you're actually not making anything that fantastic, and so people who get caught up in the algorithm too much and then they just give up. Maybe it's not the algorithm,
well, that's actually, yeah. So something I've heard you say in podcasts before is about vanity numbers,
Yep.
which is, like, I know what you're getting at when you say that, but it's something that I would like say is, I don't know, like, there are definitely vanity numbers, but I think those numbers, like Ben's 125, 130,000 YouTube subscribers, like, that's confirmation that his videos are good,
Yes.
because not everyone logs into YouTube and they have that many subscribers the next day. Like, that's taken years of consistency and good stuff. If he had been on YouTube, he's been on there 5 years, 6 years, something like that.
Oh,
If
yeah,
every
something like
single one of if his videos in that time were crap, he'd have 1,000 subscribers, 2,000 subscribers. Like, so that is definitely confirmation that it's good. If you
Well,
look
I
at,
think
like, I sort of post, at a pretty consistent time. Would I still have 63,000 followers on Instagram if I posted at 3 a.m. Melbourne time instead of 7 p.m. Melbourne time? Well, who's to say? Who knows? Some of those videos that have taken off and I've gotten a lot of followers from, would it be different? It's who knows? Who knows? But at the end of the day, I think, yeah, if you're posting stuff that people find, like I said before, interesting, satisfying, informative, yeah, people will watch it, people will share it, people will like it, comment, and
Yeah.
your following will grow or your business will grow.
I think with the vanity number side of things, it depends on what your goal for your business is. Because I think for Ben or yourself or someone like Brenton from the Aussie Lawn, when your goal is genuinely to in some way make a career out of social media, that is an essential number. But what happens with a lot of the users, like I was having a chat with, there's a friend of mine, Anthony Hahn, who has a channel called Momentum Mowing, and he's got well over 10,000 followers on Instagram. And I was having a chat to him about this, and I was like, for the average lawnmower guy, right, how many people in your follower count are actually in the service area you have? And he was like, next to none, right? Like, and I can't remember what his ratios were, but a bunch of them were in the US or something like that. And so for him specifically, he's not getting, he's got like a good following, and it's nice and it's satisfying to know that his content is good, and he makes some interesting reels of his work, and he does good work, so people want to watch it. But is he getting a return on investment from that? Maybe not as much as what people would think. But then again, you can do it in a way that does get you that return on investment. If somebody's, really quite like for example yourself, right? If a lot of people are, you're taking it from a different angle because you're going down the mode of sponsorship for people, and they can buy products all across the country or even across the world. So it's slightly different. But if somebody is narrowed down to a smaller area, you can still use Instagram to effectively market to that area, and then it's not a vanity number. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like, let me put it this way: if I had on Silverstone Gardening, I think we've got 600 or something followers, and we don't really use it that much, which I would like to improve on. But let's say I had 200,000 followers, but all those 200,000 followers were in China. It's like, for me to brag or boast about that would just be arrogance, wouldn't it? Like it's no better than somebody who's got 600, local ones,
Yeah, I mean, something I would say as well is this something you said in an earlier podcast, is how you were at a quote and you had this video on your Instagram and you showed them that. So that's, maybe not to attract the business if you've got 10,000 followers and 9,960 are, ages away. But, if for me now, if I was to be like, start a business tomorrow, go to a quote and to be like, hey, look at my Instagram, like this is my lawn and this is something else I've done and this is a project, like, you can go on here and look at my stuff. That is super powerful. And I think if you are a business owner, it's this is something we said on the phone the other day, was like, it's such a job where all day you are doing transformations, before and afters. People love before and afters. They love before. It's so, to me, some of my most satisfying stuff that I scroll through as a user is before and after. Look what this looked like now. It's amazing.
Yes, 100%.
That's great. So you can do that 100 times a day, and to do some of those like video transitions and stuff. When you're scrolling through Instagram yourself, save some sounds, some music where there's that someone else has done. That's just a before and after, and then you're standing in front of a hedge, just like point at the ground, look up at the hedge, point it back down at the ground again. Then when you're finished, point it at the ground, look at the hedge, maybe walk around it, do a lap around it or something. There's your reel.
As long as it's good. It's like the most ugliest hedge in the world. Actually, that could work, couldn't it? It could be like an anticlimactic, like, I don't know.
Angles. It's more the angle. But, like if you get the music in time, if you take that extra minute to play with it and crop it to the right spot and make sure, because, if it's a specific drop in the music or something, and you miss it by 3 seconds. It's like, that was a bit crap,
Bit unprofessional, yeah.
But yeah, but you take 2 videos, you line them up to the music, and how much time did that take out of your day? Well, it probably took 30 seconds to take your phone out and record the before and after. It might take you 5 minutes of playing around when you're sitting in your ute at the end of the day or at the end of the job or whatever. Hit post. You've already saved the music just when you were, I don't know, sitting on the toilet before work and scrolling through Instagram.
Yeah.
Save it. I'll use that today. So yeah, it is such a job where you mow a lawn, you make an edge look really nice. To me, there are certain industries where getting content is a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
Like my wife's content, she's in finance broking. It's not like she's got clients standing in front of sold signs. But what's she going to do? Take a selfie?
The time lapse of signing a contract is not as exciting, is it?
Yeah, that's not as good as some single double diamonds or something like that on a lawn.
Yeah,
So it is such an industry where, and it doesn't have to be like I gave a real video transition idea, but it could be photos. It could easily be, here's a awesome hedge we did today, and here's the before, and here's the after. And you go to the quote that you've got the next day, they've got a hedge exactly the same. You're like, oh, I did one of those last week. Scroll. Here, look at this. Yeah, I can definitely do that. And they look at that and they go, oh yeah, oh, this is my Instagram. If you want to follow, and that could help you win that quote, win that job. So yeah, I think it's an industry where you can easily do a lot with it, just with simple photos.
Do you try and do things that are somewhat controversial? Maybe not even controversial, but like you're sort of poking the bear a little bit sometimes with the viewer to try and create action in the comment section, or because like if you're just doing time lapses, that's a certain type of audience who would want that. But I guess if you would mix it up with some other things, like how do you think about mixing it up? How do you think about poking the bear a little bit to get some activity? Because like we'll bring it back to Anthony. He's probably going to love that we're talking about him in the podcast. But Anthony did a hedging video once where he did like 99% of the hedge and then left a big chunk in the middle deliberately and then just ended the reel. And it was like, that's funny. And then I think he posted one later on of him, or a story or something of him actually cutting the end off. But last little bit he missed. But what do you think of when you're trying to mix things up a little bit, or you're trying to poke the bear, you're trying to get some activity going? Do you have what thoughts do you go through? Is it something that comes up naturally, or do you really try and plan it and think it out? Give us a bit of an idea.
Yeah, I think when it comes to engagement, when you're creating content, you obviously want people to see it. If you're posting it, you want people to see it. If I didn't want people to see it, then I would just take the video and then I would send it to my mum and then delete it from my gallery. And
she'd love it. Yeah.
That's wonderful, darling. So yeah, I think sometimes sometimes it's like, even I've seen some things on YouTube where it's about, clickbait titles and stuff like that. And it's like, well, like you're going to, like, I know you want to see this video and I know you're going to watch it. And if I just have to make it a little bit, clickbaity, then, just deal with it. Because if it just said, imagine, go back to Ben, if he just, for his however many videos he's posted, the title was Lawn Vid 1, Lawn Vid 2, Lawn Vid 3. Like, who's watching that? A recent example, I hung a door out in our outdoor entertaining area that I've been building over the last few months. And in the first thing, I had a caption over the top of it that said, "Local DIY dad makes huge mistake." And then it's one of those like kind of ASMR-ish sort of videos where there's like a second of me chiseling and then, using the router and, satisfying. And then it gets to the end, I'm like putting the handle through and blah, blah, blah. And then I walk through the door at the end and like thumbs up to the camera. And then there's another caption that says, "Just kidding, I smashed it." And I had so many comments from people
I
that were
remember
like,
that one.
"You got me!" Like I watched the whole, which is funny. But I
Yeah.
checked that. I checked that this morning to see on TikTok, because TikTok views are all over the place. Like it seems like on TikTok a video will either have 100,000 or 2,000. Like the highs and
Oh
lows are
yeah, right.
massive.
Interesting.
Instagram is very consistent. No matter what I post, is very consistent. There's obviously ebbs and flows, but that one has got, as of now, 390,000 views. And I can almost guarantee that if I didn't have that clip at the start, like if it was no captions, just
Yes.
the video of me doing what I was doing, 10,000 views. Like it's, that thing at the start, oh, what's the mistake going to be?
Yeah.
And even just in terms of the first few things that you say, like the video I posted last night where I've got some spray drift onto my edges with
Yep.
Roundup and killed them. So I'm like chucking out some seed to try and fix that up. In the first few seconds, I'm like, I'm always happy to admit when I'm wrong or whatever. And so that's like people watching that going, oh, he was wrong about something, oh, what's this? I'll watch this. Whereas if the first few seconds was me kind of looking in the camera, I'm in the right spot, and then kind of adjusting my shirt and being like, yeah, g'day guys. So I'm just
Hi,
here on
friends.
my just here on my front lawn today, and what I'm doing is bloody car just went past.
Yeah. Hi,
Sorry, what was that?
Magpie.
Like
Yeah.
scroll,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Exactly.
gone. So
Yeah. Straight
yeah, I
into
think
it.
there's definitely I don't know. It seems to have come naturally to me over the last year, I guess, when I've been posting that kind of talking content. Even the Hoselink one that I said about earlier, where I was like, if you want to see an expert, don't watch this. Like that's like, oh, I'll keep watching this. How bad can it be?
Well, the
So
thing
yeah, I
about
think
that, well, that reel that we posted, because I commented on that last night and I tagged Ben, because I remember, and this is one of the things that I like about your channel, is that you're not. This is what I mean by, but those who at the beginning when I was saying you're quite approachable. You're not better than everybody, nose in the air sort of. Which not that I have anybody in mind in the industry who's like that, but you can get just general people on Instagram. And I was actually thinking about last night with that post, because we like to post all of our. Okay, let's take a few steps back on what I know about marketing. Is that what you're really trying to achieve with marketing when you're coming from a business? Is the number one goal should be to build trust with the client, right? So, and that's different from them liking you, if you get what I mean. Because some people, they want people to like them. They want, as a business, they want the person listening to their whatever marketing content. So they go on, let's say, their website. They go, oh, I want them to like me as a business. Well, they might like you as a business, but they may not trust you. Often both of those go together. You like and trust somebody, but it's not always the case. Whereas if someone trusts you, they still may not like you, but they'll do business with you because they trust you, because they feel like you're an honest person. And when I saw that reel last night, and knowing that we were going to have this conversation today, I did think, I was like, do you know what? I've never thought about posting my mistakes. And now I talk about my mistakes on the podcast for a very similar reason, that, it's just the real world and it's just what happens. But do you know what I realized is, and I've been telling people this for years, is your bad reviews on Facebook or Google or whatever are great opportunities to build trust, because people don't, when they look at your reviews, I mean, you're probably like this, everyone's like this. Say there's 100 5-star reviews and 3 1-star reviews. I click straight to the 1-star reviews. I'm just interested. And most of the time, 99% of people can see where somebody's being a bit of a dick, where someone's being a jerk, where the client is just completely wrong, right? So you don't usually have to defend yourself as much as what you feel like you do, but it's a great opportunity. Donald Trump mastered this. Great opportunity to turn bad media or bad information or bad attacks into promotion. And so, the way that you can do it in a small business with Facebook reviews and websites and things like that is, when somebody does a bad review, you have a great opportunity to show how good your customer care is, because in the real world, clients understand that they're not going to get a perfect business. And at some point, someone will make a mistake. So what's the business like when they make a mistake? So back to your reel, I realized it actually could be a great opportunity when you do make a mistake to see. Now, there's probably a line with this where you'll probably just get roasted in the comments section. And there's probably a line where you've threaded the needle. But if you can thread the needle, there might be a good opportunity to say, hey, look, we made a little mistake here, but we've come back and here's how we're fixing it. And if that becomes something that happens on a semi-regular basis, because mistakes do happen on a semi-regular basis, and we're not talking about like I set someone's property on fire or something like that. You've probably heard that story from the podcast. But little things like that, people that might actually build trust with the audience, and they might go, this is a good business. I can recommend them. I can talk about them. Maybe they're not even in my area, but I got friends who are in that area. And do you know what I mean? It goes from just being the guy who posts the reels and the guy who's got some interesting before and afters to, oh no, this is actually a guy or a girl or whatever who is trustworthy and honest. And yeah, like I said, with marketing, if you can build that trust, then people will do business with you, whether they like you or not, because ultimately it's all about having a good deal. So I think, last night I realized that with you as well, and that's probably why you come across as approachable, and it's probably a valuable tool to that, and that people can use in their businesses.
Yeah, I think definitely, like, if you were to, put up a story or something and be like, back at Margaret's house today, can you believe, first job of the day, I was still waking up and I completely forgot this path. I completely forgot to edge this path, so I got a really nice message last night to say, I think you might have forgotten this. So anyway, here I am, let's hope the rest of the day I can remember to do my job properly.
That's a great
and you
example.
put that up and it's like, oh yeah, cool. Like he's back there the next day, he's done it. Like if I'm a prospective client watching that, I'm like, yeah, like great customer service. Like this guy's great. And that's, where I think you really build that sort of community, I guess, as well, where, you talk about is it 100 or 1,000 supporters? Is it 100? We were talking about on the phone the other day.
Yeah, we're talking about this. There's a guy called.
1,000?
No, it's 1,000. There's a guy named Seth Godin. For those who weren't again tapping into our phone conversation the other week, there's a marketing guy called Seth Godin where he's like, in the real world, you need 1,000 true fans to have a successful business. Because, man, if you want tens of thousands of employees or whatever big numbers, you need more. But for a solo person, if you had 1,000 true fans that paid you $100 a year, it's $100,000 a year job. You don't even need that many if you're obviously running a lawn mowing business. So anyways, that's what we're talking about. What you're saying with that.
Yeah. So like in that way, like I think on my Instagram stories, like on any of the social media I do, the people that watch my Instagram stories, they're the highest, the highest percentage of people, who haven't heard of this podcast before that will listen, will be people who watch my Instagram stories, because they're the people that are most engaged, most supportive, probably know the most about me, where I share more stuff, like, and that's something I'll do a lot of times as well, is not like, re-record things 10 times before I post it on my story. Like, and that's where like a lot of the fun comes as well. Like the other week I was recording something, talking about how I'd driven down the street with the tailgate on my ute open. And I ended up having to drive back to the supermarket, not just down the street, all the way from the supermarket. So I drive all the way back and I'm talking, and the word tailgate just did not come to me. I'm like standing there, I'm like, so I did this and bloody, and then I'm like, and I left it in there. And then I had like 10, and then the next thing, I got a message straight away. And the next one was like, now how many people are going to message me saying it's called a tailgate? And so I was like keeping a tally of it, and it became a joke. And then ongoing for like the next few weeks was people like this inside joke about a tailgate. And there's been so many of those things. Like even when my wife took the lasagna to work the other week, and then I like took my wedding ring off, scooped it into the bin, and then I got the mower, and there's people commenting like, now we watch him frantically dig through the bin for that wedding ring now, like things like that, where it's like, I'm not I'm not doing like, that's just me. I'm not trying to do that to gain followers or to, like, that's just
Right.
the enjoyment. It's the enjoyment of social media for me. And having that laugh and that engagement. And even, you were talking about negative comments before. That's something that I've had a lot. I would never have expected a lawn page on Instagram and so, like, on social media in general, to get so many negative comments. And there's been times, two in particular, one where I got a pretty like offensive one, and I put it on my story, and I had about 90 replies, which was huge. I had another time where a guy insulted my kids, which
Oh,
is,
wow. Really?
normally it wasn't like a really harsh kind of comment. He said he was replying to someone else's comment and saying something like, so the lawn can be soft like his kids. Not like super harsh,
What?
but definitely an insult targeted at a 1 and a 3-year-old. And I'm like, nah, like, Instagram wouldn't let me type my comment. So I screenshot it and I put it on my story, and I was like, if you want to see, like, I get a lot of negative comments, and I'll be like, whatever. And especially when it comes up and I'm like, oh, I've got something funny to say back to that. Then I'll reply to it, and I'll screenshot it, and I'll put it on my story, and it's a bit of a laugh, and it hopefully helps people, to, if they were, in that position where they might have commented negatively on someone else's post or whatever, they see my side of it and see that person's point of view. And it's like, maybe there's been people who have seen my replies and been like, oh, well, I'm not going to bother when I see some other sort of content, But yeah, definitely a lot of support and a lot of that from those people, which is awesome. But yeah, it's just trying to build a positive community, I guess, as well. It's really nice.
So if we put a as Ben Van de Giesen from Skull Search would say, if we put a bow on this part of the conversation, is actually essentially when you get the negative comments, you make mistakes, you do something that's a little bit of a brain fade, like the tailgate thing. There are actually great opportunities to make content that is relatable, builds trust, and that's something I didn't think about until last night. And we were on the phone. We've had 2 phone calls preparing for this and thinking about this, and it's only because we were having those phone calls and having those conversations, and then it was like, oh, actually, I've just realized that's actually a huge tool there. One thing I was going to ask you as well is, do you actually schedule in a lot of posts? Like, how for those maybe who are completely unaware, you can, I don't know if it's in Instagram itself, but in like the Meta Business Suite or whatever they call it, there is a possibility to scheduling things in advance. Do you do much of that, or is it more like you schedule in something, I guess, maybe into your own literal schedule where you set aside time to make a post?
I would say, especially early on, is when I don't know if stress is the right way to describe it, but I would be like, oh, like, have I got anything to post? Whereas, I've got such a backlog in my gallery now of stuff that, I'm pretty cool with having things to post. But yeah, I mean, I do try to vary it. Like, if I've got, a video where I'm talking to the camera, and it's one of those sorts of ones like last night where I'm like, hey, this is a project I'm doing. Like, I'll probably not do those 3 nights in a row. Like, I do try to break it up a little bit and do different things. Like, if I've got a few brand deals happening at the same time, which is, I'm sure, is something we'll get into a bit more as well. But if I've got a few of those, I'm not going to post them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to be like, maybe Monday, Thursday, and the following Tuesday or something like that, to break it up a little bit. Just to not be posting all the same stuff at the same time. So I will, I'll be like, oh, I've just done 3 things in a row where I've been on the back lawn. So I'll try and do something more so on the front lawn. And that's just,
right. Yeah. And
I don't know, not essential to do, but I will just kind of do that. And in terms of scheduling, Instagram broke my trust once, and it posted, I'd set it for 7 p.m. or something, and it posted at like 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon. I was like, no, save, delete. So I will more so go into Instagram. I'll type the caption. I'll do any tagging that needs to be done, put my hashtags, make a cover photo thing, save it as a draft, and then I can come in, and just basically hit share pretty
Right,
much.
yeah. 'Cause I haven't used the draft feature that
Oh, you
much,
have to.
mate. Like that's where I'm going wrong. I literally just make it and then it's out. Like,
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
But what? So you're using essentially. It sounds like what you're saying is, so you're in a project. You're doing something on the back lawn. All your content that you're filming at the moment would be on the back lawn. So are you using? It sounds like you're using previous photos and things you've done in the past. I've actually noticed this as well with your, because the MoMaster is very recent that you've got that like couple of weeks, right? And so you've actually had some videos where you're using the Massport cylinder motor that you've got. And so it has crossed my mind where I'm like, it looks like he's scheduled that, or or actually, are you just still using the Massport at the front? Oh, actually, now I'm not sure. Like,
yeah. I'm using the Massport out the front. Yeah, it's a lot more for anyone who doesn't follow me or whatever. It's kind of 5 broken up sections,
very small.
and
Yeah,
especially if I'm doing a pattern where I'm going across one section to the other, particularly the 2 sections closest to the
yeah.
house. There's a lot of cracks in the concrete and stuff. Like so yeah. I'm really nervous of managing that 26-inch, 200 kilo MoMaster, as well as the maneuverability of it just not being suited to those spaces, especially on the
Yeah.
section to the side of the letterbox that has the hose reel on it, which is just the most annoying spot. All these things that I want to fix and change eventually. But yeah, it's just not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just not, wouldn't make sense to be using that, the MoMaster on the front lawn at the
Let's go.
moment. So
Let's go down a little rabbit trail here, because what's your experience been like? Let's get off Instagram for a second. What's your experience been like transitioning from a Massport to a MoMaster? Because they are just worlds apart in so many ways, right? People think it's a
yeah.
cylinder mower and another cylinder mower. They should be similar. No, they are not, right? Like, what's your experience like?
Well, yeah, so far, I've only mowed with it twice. I've had it for 3 weeks or whatever, but being winter, even like the more rain we get, the soggier the backyard gets. I've got so many upgrades that I want to do with it in terms of,
Yeah.
heaps of core aeration, heaps of top dressing and that sort of thing to try and free up the soil. But yeah, so I've only mowed with it twice, and yeah, so far just getting used to turning it and all that sort of thing, and it is making a bit of a mess in certain sections that are really, really soggy, particularly around the perimeters on the far side where all the natives are planted in that garden bed, and the back fence. It's just really soggy. So I think I'm probably even going to get to a point, depending how wet the next few weeks are, where I'm probably only putting the mower across like 80% of the lawn, just because of how wet and soggy it is. But yeah, so that's a bit of a shame from that perspective. But I guess, yeah, just even talking to Project 31,
Yep.
he's got Homer 31. He posts some good stuff. He's got a MoMaster.
Yeah, he's a follower of the pod as well. We've messaged before, so
Oh, yes, very good, very good. Well, there's your shout out.
yep.
But yeah, so he's
Shouting out
got
everybody today. You know,
yeah,
everyone's getting love. You get some
I was
love. We're like Oprah Winfrey on here.
yeah, we'll put up a list of 100 people to go and follow after this.
Exactly.
But yeah, so he's got like I was messaging him and I was like, he said, "How's it going?" I was like, "Yeah, like I just need to play around with a few things, like learn how to adjust the reel and backlap and that sort of stuff." And he was like, "Look, to be honest, you'll find you really don't need to do it much."
Yeah.
Which with my Massport was like, sometimes I'd be slack and I'd do it every second mow, make sure that it was cutting paper, and adjust the reel to make sure that it was cutting right. But really, at least every second cut, I was making sure that it's cutting paper. Especially with the back lawn being 500 square meters, for if you got 100 square meter lawn, like it can, that's 5 mows that it's equivalent there. So it's got a lot more time to loosen, I guess, in that time. So anyway, it's just, yeah, I guess it's just a build quality, isn't it? Like it's just such a strong quality mower. Things like, people telling me how they barely ever even adjust their reel because it's just so solid and just stays there and it's sharp and you barely need a backlap and that sort of thing. It's like, well, that's pretty sick. That's cool.
For the home user, I think the mass sports and things like that, where the newer models, or like a really well restored Scott Bonner, they have like ultimately the cut quality is just down to how sharp your blades are. But it's
Yeah.
when things start to lose adjustment stuff, and there's a huge difference for those who are listening who are contractors. If you've had experience with the mass sport, I actually had a guy message me yesterday who I said, I'm sorry, mate, I don't have time to have a full phone call about this at the moment. But he was asking like, what's the difference between the mass sport and the Mowmaster? I was like, oh, funny that you're coming on tomorrow. But the thing about it, which I found, now I haven't actually specifically used a mass port yet, but I get the idea with them. Those more residentially targeted machines, the difference between them as a contractor is really how well they can handle those things like being on a trailer, vibrations, just hitting some debris or something like that you don't notice because it's not your lawn, things like that. That's where the Mowmaster is in a different world. Like the way how we do our maintenance, you don't realize how those little things change everything. Like I've got a 28-inch Mowmaster that's at my house, old girl, probably 16 years old or something like that, and that's our backup. That has been our backup. So I just keep my house and we cut the lawn. I don't think I have adjusted that. I don't know, months and months and months, right? Because it's just being used in my house, maybe 6 months. And I'll do a test every now and then, being like, surely it needs an adjustment, and it still cuts paper so good. And that hasn't,
Wow.
that doesn't make a noise when it's cutting. Like it's not so tight that it makes a noise. And I don't think it's been sharpened in over a year, right? Like,
Wow.
and it has been used out on the road a couple of times, but it's mainly been at my house. Whereas the ones that go on the road, right? If you're driving it every day, you go over speed bumps, going over curbs, it bounces, things like that happen. They still hold very well. We test them at least twice a week, and they're still holding it. But you still need to do the sharpening and things like that, because you are going to hit sticks and maybe tiny little rocks every now and then. But that's where it's very, very different. So, anyways, for those people who are interested from a commercial standpoint, that's the benefits. One of the negatives, though, it's a pretty big machine, isn't it? Right? And it takes a while to get used to. So how have you felt using it, going from 70 kilos to, what did you say yours was?
209 apparently, to be exact. And yeah, the mass
Where did you
port
get
is
that
around
from?
70.
Is that from the shipping? Because I didn't realize they were that heavy. I thought maybe yours is slightly different, but I thought my HC26 was like 170 kilos or something. So is
Must
that
have been
what
in a better paddock, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from. Like, I think that was, that's just what Kate had been told, I think, when she was in the whole purchasing process. But yeah, it's like when I first got it, alongside the pool, when you come out from the shed and push it down the side there, it's a slight incline. And I'd put a video up of me like pushing it out there. People were like, start the mower. And I'm like, guys, come on, think about this for 1 second. Maybe it's early in the morning, which it was. So I didn't want to start the mower. But anyway, but pushing it out there is like such an effort. Get it run up, trying to push this thing out, take some photos out on the lawn to post. But yeah, it's a big boy. It's a big boy. So yeah, definitely getting used to that maneuvering and things like that. Yeah, it is, like I said, it's a bit of a shame to be using it in winter. But yeah, all the things you're saying there about, not needing to adjust and being on the road, I'm like, it just makes me more excited. Like, it's super cool. Because that mass sport, like, people message me about, what considerations and, what should I do? What should I be looking at? And all those sorts of things. And I'll, reply talking about, the size of your yard and maneuvering it and, what sort of sections if you got. And if you got a big wide open space, bigger one. If you got smaller spaces, a smaller mower. People ask me about different brands, and I'm like, look, I know one bad story about one brand, which I won't say, of someone who took it back and got a full refund to get a mass sport. And I know there's quite a few people, I'd say Mass Sport have made a fair few sales from me, from people that have asked me about it. And I've told them about my experience. And honestly, if people message me and ask, I'm like, like around that price range, I can't say I've never used a Bush Ranger, a Super Swift, a Cox. I haven't used them all, so I
Yeah.
can't say for sure. I can't tell you. I can just tell you that for me, as an entry-level cylinder mower user, in the time that I used it, a year and a half, or have been using it, that did the job for me. You look after it, you make sure it's cutting paper before a mow, you backlap it probably every 6 to 8 mows, something like that. You look after it like anything, and it's going to cut your grass, and it's going to stripe it, and it's going to be nice. It's unfair. It's just, it is absolutely unfair to compare MoMaster and Mass Sport. You just can't. It's like trying to compare.
Yeah.
It's like trying to compare a 2010 Hilux to a 2023, I don't know, Ford Ranger or something. You just can't.
Well, I think they're different tools for different jobs as well. And actually, we'll get onto this as well. You made a video about Ryobi stuff, right? Because I've got plenty of Ryobi stuff. In fact, I've got some right over there that I use. And it's just, what's the word? You got to pick the right tool for what you're doing, and if all you're doing is what you're doing with DIY stuff at home, and you're not using it 24/7 as a money-making tool, do you really need anything better than a Ryobi? I don't think so. I've only ever broken one Ryobi thing in my life, and I've probably got, I don't know, a dozen different things. And I make quite a lot of stuff and use them a lot. And I think it's the same with the Mass Sport versus the MoMaster, where it's like, if you're a commercial operator, here's my advice for people who are thinking about going to cylinder mowing. I totally understand that your budget is going to be a limit. If you haven't got experience with a cylinder mower, you should probably go and get something that's secondhand just to get experience on your own lawn, understand how it works before you go out and charging clients for it, right? Get something cheap, nasty, whatever. But if you're going to go make money off it, your two options are, if you cannot possibly finance, go and get something that's like a Mass Sport, where you can use it, but understand that it's probably only going to last a year before you start having some problems, right? And you need to put some money aside for maintenance and things like that. And it's not the cut quality that's going to be a problem. It's going to be vibrations on the trailer, taking it on and off, up and down a ramp, things like that over time, hitting rocks, hitting things like that. But the other thing is that if you're talking about finance, and you can hit up Craving for a Saving, I think, if you want some finance. I don't know if they're going to...
Zella Money, everyone go to Zella Money and refinance your house. You can refinance a credit card. You know that? Anything that's finance, you can get better rates on it. But anyway, put that in there. Sponsor the podcast today.
I know everyone's getting a shout out today. Like over again, everyone gets a shout out. No, but
but if you're going to do that though in your business and make a return on it from charging for that cylinder mowing, like it pays
exactly.
off eventually,
it's different. It's a different thing, and the reality is, for those mowing contractors out there listening to this, is MoMasters are actually not expensive. They will be, over the life of the mower, they will be one of the cheapest mowers that you ever have, because, like I said, that 16-year-old MoMaster I got that for $2,500 maybe 3 years ago or something like that, and it is just as good, and it has not had a single replacement part, probably not even the air filter. It's probably cut hundreds or maybe 1,000. It has been more of a backup one for a long period of time, but it cuts so good. It's just fantastic. If you guys see the putting green at my house that I have, that's what's cutting that at the moment. And, over the life of the machine, it's just so cheap. Whereas if you take on a Honda HRU 216, I mean, granted, those machines are more, they're going to get more abuse because you are going to do overgrown lawns, but I was having a conversation with some contractors the other day. Actually, it was Anthony Hahn again. He's getting all, and Ash Smithers, I'll give him a shout out too. And actually, Humongous was on part of this group chat as well. Anyways, look, I just give everybody a shout out. But they're talking about replacing those Honda rotaries like every year. They were talking about now, because they were like, well, it's $1,700 or $1,600 or whatever it is for a new one. But if you could sell it after a year for $1,000, it's only cost you $600 a year, and you're not going to get any problems. So that's what I was sort of thinking in that ballpark. But with a Mowmaster, right, like, yeah, it's $600 a year loss. You're going to get better than that over, if you got a when you take into part replacement blades, when you take into part all that sort of stuff, it's actually a better over the entire lifetime of the mower. It's actually a very, very good deal. So anyway,
How often do you get a grind? How often do you get a grind done?
So we actually only do it. We should probably do it more, but once a year. So our maintenance, and one day I'd like to have Luke on, and he can critique me on the maintenance. But the way that we do it is we've booked in Tuesdays and Thursday mornings to just check on the mowers and just to check their cut. It's really important to make sure that they don't get separation of the blades before you start noticing it in the lawn, because you can adjust it when you start noticing it, but it just dulls them a little bit quicker. That's a whole conversation for another day. But Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, we set aside time just to check it. And then Thursday mornings, we have time to backlap every week. But we don't necessarily need to backlap every week. So, and there's different, you might just give it a little touch up, like a tiny little 3-minute little backlap. Sometimes it takes 10 to 15 minutes. And some people argue, and I agree with this, that a backlap is not as good as a grind. Like a grind is just perfect. But the reality is that it's so hard to, in the real world, it's so hard to like keep booking it in for a grind or replacing the reel and everything. But also in the real world, I don't think if you stand back and look at a lawn, can you notice the difference between the quality of cut? Not on a 20 to 30 mil cut lawn, maybe on a 10 mil less lawn. So look, that was a rabbit hole. Any other comments you have on your Mowmaster before we get back to Instagram?
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of the maintenance as well is something that people be aware of. Like by the time I got a grind done, I think it was maybe January or February. So I'd had my mass bought for 14 months or so by that time. And the contact between the reel and the bed knife was tight to cut paper.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and that's cutting I wasn't using it on the back lawn at this house yet. And at my old house, I had about 450 in total, 250 out front and 200 out back. So not cutting, cutting a decent amount of lawn, I guess, but, was backlapping it and looking after it. And that grind was $240, something like that.
Yeah.
And, had to drive half an hour to drop it off on Monday, half an hour back to pick it up on Thursday or something, definitely things for people, for cylinder mower owners to be aware of, and I think it's like anything, you look after it, it'll look after you.
Yeah. Let's get back to Instagram, man. I mean, we could talk Mowmaster all day, but, I've got about 7 other still questions to go, at least,
Oh, fire.
In the beginning, let's go back to when we were in the early stages, because a lot of people would relate to that who are listening to this right now. What were the biggest mistakes that you were making in the beginning? When did you notice them, and what happened when you changed them? Or were you perfect from day one?
Always perfect.
All right, thanks for coming on. Nothing else we can learn. No.
See you later. Look, that is good question. That's why you're on the big bucks, Luke. I don't know. I think
where are these big bucks? I
think my content, and this is what I said earlier, like I really have developed what I'm doing over time, and it has been a really natural progression. So yeah, I guess in the end to look at it and be like, I've been doing this for, if we talk months, 21 months, it was 8 months before I spoke, before my voice was on Instagram. So, and then it was another probably month after that when I actually put my face on camera and did a reel where I was talking about applying liquid iron.
To be honest, when I was there,
yeah,
did you find much of a difference between the growth rate when you were sort of doing it with how would you put it, without your voice, without your face, to growth rate with your voice and with your face?
Well, for talking about growth, that's an interesting sort of topic, because It's a bit
Well,
of
the
the thing
reason
in like the.
so
Sorry,
the
you go.
reason just the reason why I'm asking is that I do appreciate a lot of people would feel awkward and they feel like I can't post on Instagram because I just don't feel comfortable yet. And would you recommend to those people that they should just still put stuff out there? You know, like it's still worth it? Or is it sort of like, no, you're definitely going to get so much better results. Work on getting comfortable, put your face and voice out there, or it just doesn't really matter.
Well, it comes back again to what suits you. What do you want to do? You can
Right.
build a
Okay.
really good following by just doing, captions over the top. Just showing you doing the process of a time lapse and just writing over the top of it. Tips about lawn care or top dressing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You can do my style where you talk to the camera
Yeah.
and you do that sort of thing. I think I've had a lot. It was sort of in that transition of leaving our last house to moving to this house. And I think I had such growth because my style and what I'm doing is sort of taking people on a journey. It was like, moving in, it was like this big lawn and, it's like I'm cutting it down. Like I couldn't just move in day one and renovate the whole lawn because I didn't have the time to, like we took out, how much was it? We estimated about 10 cubic meters of material is how
Oh,
much we took
wow.
out. So it was thick, thatchy, spongy, like,
Yes.
yeah, a lot of work. So I basically set it to a number, 6 on the rotary or 7, and I went down to a 6 and then a 5, and gradually over time, when you're like a really spongy lawn, you put it on a 6 and you take out, just say 5 catches, and then you go again another direction, you take out 4 catches just because the wheels are floating on the
Yes,
thatchiness,
they
and you
do.
can do
Yep.
like 3 passes at the same height and you keep taking off heaps of
Yes.
stuff. But anyway, so I was like, look, this is what I need to do because I can't do a full renovation right now. But anyway, so people were coming on that journey. They were seeing the, first mow of my new lawn, my second mow, and, I've finally dried out enough because last spring was so wet that I can apply some products to it. And then by the time I got to actually doing that renovation, people had watched this whole process where they like, they'd seen all the hard work and they'd seen the ones where I'm like struggling to push through this thick
Yeah.
grass. And then when I started to stripe it and, use the cylinder on it and stuff like that is engaging content. Like you can see
Yeah.
a nice lawn and you can see, before and after photo. But if you've like watched for a couple of months, this guy struggle and
Yes.
remove all this material, like I feel like that was big for me in terms of engagement and growth because people had sort of come on the journey for it, which is big. So, yeah, but again, to come back to what you first said, it's like it depends on your style, it depends what you're comfortable with. I now, if I'm recording in the front yard, like that video you saw me last night where I'm standing in the front lawn,
Yeah.
I'll still like get everything set up, put my microphone on, hit record, walk down to the footpath, look left, look right, and there might be people like 100 meters away, and I'm like, all right, I can get in like 2 or 3. I can get in like the first couple of bits here and talk to the camera, and then just kind of scratch around, go to the letterbox. How you going?
Pretend like you're not an Instagram guy, like it is a bit weird and embarrassing still, isn't it?
Oh, actually, my main big tree in the front lawn, I used to be able to hide the tripod behind that and all the leaves would cover it, but now the leaves are falling off, so I'm exposed.
Right.
But yeah, so like I'm still, like doing those sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, it just depends what you're comfortable with. And I just gradually, it's actually, it's a year that I first put my face on there, which it does feel strange because it feels like I've been doing it for a lot longer than that.
Yeah. It's been less than a year that you had your face on. Oh, no. Was it the year that you put the audio out? Or was it a year?
Yeah, I think I did that striping one that you played earlier. I wrote down it was the 10th of June, and then the 3rd of July last year was the first time I spoke to the camera doing an application of liquid iron. So
wow,
actually had my face.
It's literally
a year
because it's the 5th of July today.
Yeah. So and there's been definitely surges of growth that I've seen. It hasn't just been linear. There's been certain things where it's been big surges in growth.
Well, let's go into that because I'm a pro. Look at how prepared I am. I'm going to put on the screen.
Here we go.
Bam! This video, you told me was a big turning point because for those who are watching on YouTube, I'm going to press play. You're not going to be able to hear it because I turned the volume down. But this with a bent shaft whippersnipper. How many views did this video get? Oh, it's gone to the next one. Whoopsie daisies.
Oop.
Go back again.
Not that professional. That got to 22.5 million views. And that's
22 million.
For people listening, is just like 4 separate clips, is it, of me
Something like that.
using that bent shaft whippy with, some music
No
over
guard.
the top of it. So
Are they
what?
in the back there? Those little flowers? I'm just getting distracted by your lovely flowers.
Yeah. What are they? They're ones that do really well in the. What did you say?
Vinca or periwinkle, some people might call them.
Nah, what are they? They do really well in the shade because that garden bed along there.
Begonias?
Yeah.
Impatience?
No. Impatience, yes. Bang.
There you go.
Ding, ding, ding.
It's almost like I'm a professional gardener.
Oh, yes. Don't fool everyone. I actually miss that bent shaft whippy. I reckon that petrol bent shaft whippy,
Wow.
I honestly think, in terms of results and everything, I think that's my favourite whippersnipper. I've now got an Ego and a Ryobi battery.
Wow.
And don't get me wrong, battery is, the way to go. And that petrol one was a pain. And in the end, it just died. And I also got given the Ego one. But I think to use, that's probably nearly my favourite one that I've used, to be honest.
That's funny.
It just depends, like with edging, doesn't it? It's like it just depends on your body, and because at the moment I feel like I can get in a better position to see what I'm doing with the Ego, but someone else might use the Ryobi and be like, actually, this works better for my body and my,
Yes.
So yeah. But.
Well, I was going to say that I prefer the bent shaft edges over the straight shaft edge. So if you have like a combi system, like a steel combi system, which is what we use at the moment. They've got straight shaft and bent shaft. Now, the problem with the bent shaft is they aren't as robust and they do break. But I had one for maybe I'm just thinking it through, like 4 years without as my main edger every single day, doing however many lawns, no problems, and then you get a problem. But with employees, they don't treat them so well. So we have a couple of them that have got some issues with the drive shaft now, where if you take the combi, the bent shaft edger off, the drive shaft just falls out, which is a pain in the butt. But anyways, I prefer using those because just ergonomically, the way it sticks out just works better with my back. And,
your back and your eye line and all those sorts of things, isn't it? It's
and I can
like
see that
works best for your body.
Yeah, this angle here, you can sort of see how, I don't know, everyone's different. So some people might be looking at the way you're whipping that, being like, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. But anyways, what we're getting at here is people try things out for yourself. Maybe you might like a bent shaft whippy better or a bent shaft edger. Who knows? But back to the reel.
Yes, so it's a bit of a thing in the community where people with lawn pages will sort of 1,000 followers, and do a post about it and that sort of thing. So as I was scrolling through last night looking at some stuff, it was the 11th of March that I hit 2,000. So what is March from October? That's like 5 months that it took to get to 2,000.
So 5 months to get to 2,000, right?
Yeah, and that's just posting edging. That's just posting not too much sort of educational stuff, but I had a few like Renault ones that did somewhat well and whatever. I posted that edging reel on the 16th of April, and it was a bit of a slow burn. Like it did okay at the start, and it was more so around, from memory, like kind of 2.5-ish weeks, where I was like saying to my wife, like, oh, this post is starting to do really well.
Oh,
like, I'm starting to get
really?
lots of notifications. Like, it's starting to really pick up. And yeah, it's something I found with viral. Like, this isn't to big note or anything, but I've probably had, I think across TikTok and Instagram, maybe 20 videos that have had over 1 million views. And that seems to be a bit of a theme, is that they don't just go bang from the very
interesting
start.
That's very surprising
to me. They tend to do okay, and then just for whatever reason, after a few days or after a week, it's like, oh, I'm getting a lot of notifications for that post. But anyway, so it was probably over the next month that I was just growing and growing and growing. And I always remembered the number that was about 12,000 followers that I got from that singular reel.
Oh,
Like
wow.
about a month after that, so like mid-May,
So you went
let's
from
say.
like 2 to 14 or something like that in.
Yeah, well, there was a month between posting it and hitting 2,000. So yeah, it was probably I think it was like 14 and a half ish, 15,000 ish. That it really grew just from that reel. Like there was
Now, if
obviously
I
other
just stop
posts that I
you,
was doing in there.
if I just stop you there, because you were still a teacher at this point, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're still working a full-time job. So that's just one thing that people might be thinking in the background. Well, of course he can do this because he doesn't have another job and he dedicated all of his time to it. But no, at this point, you were still working full-time as a teacher.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, it was, start of this year, I became, turned to stay-at-home dad. So I've been renovating the house and being able to dedicate a little bit more time to content. And even, my wife pushed me towards it. She went out one day and just bought a camera and all that sort of stuff so that I could start YouTube and was like, here you go. Like,
what hasn't your wife given you? I mean,
she's my biggest supporter by
she
far.
Is. Okay,
but yeah, so anyway.
Did she give you the beanie you're wearing? I have a feeling she's giving you that beanie.
She bloody did. She just came home one day and was like, oh, I saw this beanie. Yeah. I actually bought myself a jumper for the first time last week, and I was like, what do you reckon? She's like, it's a bit grandpa vibes. I'm like, this is the first clothing I've bought for myself, and it's, anyway. But yeah,
all right.
so.
She's a 10 out of 10 gift giver, that's for sure.
Yes.
All right, so let's get back into your story because this is really helpful actually what you're saying right now for people. So you had 2,000 after 5 months, so that's a realistic target I think people can set. But and I think what people would feel like is if they've gotten 2,000 after 5 months, they're only going to have 4,000 after 10 months. Like they just. But you're saying. You're putting out. It sounds like a bit like a fishing analogy, where it's like if you're not casting, you're not going to catch, and you're just casting and casting and casting, and then at one point, one of your reels, which we just showed, I'll put it back on the screen because I'm a pro and I can do that. I'm getting better at this whole professional side of things. If I'm just sliding through this really quickly, that is nothing that I would have thought would have gone viral. Now I like it; it's interesting.
Yeah.
But compared to the rest of your content, it doesn't stand out to me. I mean, is that a fair point that you would believe as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where with social media is like a consistency thing. Like if you just post consistently good stuff, and it comes back to that, vanity number thing. Like if your stuff is good, people are going to see it. I remember at the time being like, I can't believe this is so random. Like I've posted 20 other edging reels and come to now, a year and a bit later, I've posted who knows how many. I think I've posted like 700 times, maybe 80 or 100 have been edging. Who knows? Probably about that ratio. But, so why does that one take off? I've had others that have done well too. But why that one? I don't know. Just because the right amount of people shared it with their friends and were like, hey, look at this. And then it just kept going. So it can be quite random where it's like, why did that do well? And there's been times where I've been like, oh, this post, like this is going to be good. Or I've tried to do something funny. And I'm like, I did one once where it was like how people should drive past my lawn. And I was in the car and I pulled up and I got a phone out and I'm taking photos of the lawn. That looks awesome. And it was how they actually do. And it was just a car just driving past, not even taking it. And I was like, that's funny, and it didn't do well.
It didn't do anything. Yeah. Where's the edging one with the bench?
What's wrong with you people? This is funny.
Yeah, exactly. Like my content now. I demand it.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to post every day. You don't have to. Yeah, I think to me, I even seeing other lawn pages and stuff. It's like people will go through phases and blah blah blah, and that's completely fine too. People will go through times where they post a lot, they can't post a lot. But whether it's business growth or doing it just because you enjoy social media. I've also had times where I've just not really felt like posting, just, being like, oh, I just can't really be bothered. I had a stage at the start of this year and it only lasted, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days, not long, where I was like, like this, all this social media stuff, like, I don't know. And it came back around again, and who knows, it was just maybe feeling a little bit flat for a few days. But, and so in that time, did I maybe for that little patch of time care as much? Well, probably not. But, so that's all dependent. But I think, yeah,
Well, it sounds to
you
me
put
that
good stuff out there, people watch it.
yeah, and it's more about that consistency that it is. You keep coming back to that than necessarily having amazing reels, because one that goes sky high viral might not be the one that you're expecting, but just putting it out there gives you more chances. So 5 months in, you're at 2,000, then you have a viral hit, and it takes you to sort of 12, 14, 15 or whatever it was. What's the progression after that? I guess that probably helps snowball, and the bigger the snowball, the more it picks up and all that sort of stuff as it's rolling down the hill. So what was the progression from just in a short period of time, well, a relatively short period of time, how you've gone from, I guess 5 months in is only what, a bit over a year ago, right? Is that right?
Yeah. So this,
You said
well,
21
yeah, it was
months,
probably,
so 16 months ago or something like that. And
yeah,
so
we're talking like May last year when I would have been around that kind of 15,000 mark. Yeah.
you got to 50,000, 50,000 new followers in, that's sort of
Yeah.
like, that's quite a huge chunk, new ones every month. Was it more consistent, or was it still you get these more viral moments and then a bunch of people join and then you get another hit of viral moments, or is it more like after that it was a consistent amount every single week?
Yes, there's been definitely a couple of surges. Like I wrote down a few things here. One thing I did in August was like I did a lawn renovation series, and I uploaded a video a week for the whole week, and did like preparation and like went
Yeah.
through all the steps, which is on my profile as a story highlight, which I might redo this winter to make it a bit better, because it was not bad. But I think things like that, some of those videos did well. I've written down here that it was the 9th of September that I hit 20,000. I do remember a patch in there, I recall around that kind of 17,000 or so, where it was like maybe 6 weeks where pretty much every day I stayed the same or went backwards. This feels so long ago, but it was fairly recent. But these are the sorts of things now that I don't watch as much, and I don't look at as much. More so like, oh, I'm coming up to 62,000. That's cool. I just ticked over 63. Like, that's cool. But I used to watch it a lot more and be a lot more like, I'd post something and half an hour later be like, oh, it's got 600 views. Oh, now it's got, whereas now I'll literally hit post and then go off and stack that dishwasher or whatever and kind of come back to it and be like, oh, there's some comment. Oh, I'll reply to some comments, but not as obsessed with it. But yeah, so then it was 2 months later, then I was at 25,000. And then there was only 6 days between going from 25,000 to 30,000.
Right.
And then obviously I got distracted and I didn't write any more down. But yeah, it was kind of maybe Feb or something that I got to 50. So yeah, there's definitely been a few times where I've had over 1,000 followers in a day. And there's times where it's been a bit slower and it's been like 20 a day. And yeah, I don't know, like the numbers to me are like, I don't know, like it is nice. It's nice to see that number going up. And it is, I think, confirmation that people are enjoying it, which is great. But I'm really happy with the balance I personally have with it of not being overly fussed, I guess. Like I said, it's nice to see that number grow and all that sort of thing. But I think it would be exhausting and tough if you were like every day, like, oh my God, I had 30 people unfollow me yesterday. Why is that? Like, what did I post on that day? Because like Instagram tells me how many unfollows I get, and I haven't checked it recently. I could check it right now, but my rolling average, like 3-month average, is generally somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 unfollows in the previous 3 months.
Interesting.
So that's a lot. Like that is a lot of unfollows.
Yeah, but I was actually thinking about this yesterday, actually. Surprising it came up because, not from Instagram perspective, from a business perspective, because I did a quote in a part of a suburb that I hadn't been in a long time, just if a little sort of nook of a few streets. And we used to have 4 clients actually, within about 7 or 8 houses of each other, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, right? Like, I just remember I was doing those jobs and I was like driving past, like, man, I haven't been in this area for ages. And I remember doing these jobs and this and that, whatever. And it brought up a few thoughts because a few weeks ago, we crossed 4,000 different people we have served in some way, shape, or form over the 10
Wow,
years we've had
huge.
in business.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling like, man, I wouldn't have thought, like, how many clients, we did a lot of once off clients in the past, so it inflates that number. But I think we've got several hundred regulars now. And it's sort of like, well, I didn't realize it would take that many clients to maintain several hundred regulars. But then I was thinking about it. It's like, no, actually, in 10 years, a lot of people move houses. A lot of people, things change. People's interests change. Their budgets change. You have to be
Yeah.
prepared in business for just people to leave. So I remember hearing a business, consultant talk about it, saying, if you're not growing, you're actually shrinking because over time, just people move on. And it's nothing to do
Yeah.
with you, and you can't take it personally. It's just, that's what happens in business. So I was actually thinking about it yesterday. So I don't know. I guess it's probably the same where people maybe, like, for example, you have your lawn renovation series. Maybe they were renovating their lawn, and so they loved it and they jumped on, and then they did their renovation and they realized, I just don't care about lawn that much to keep watching. And it's nothing to do
Yeah.
with you or anything. It's just that series over and I've done my renovation now and it's time to move on to something different. So I guess it's
Yeah.
probably normal.
Oh, look, and it's all relative as well. Like I just got it up then, and in the last 3 months, I've had 24,443 follows, which is
Wow.
what is that like? Is that like 350 a day?
I don't
I
know.
think.
It's
I think.
it's more than one and less than a billion. I can guarantee that.
Yeah. And then unfollows, I've had 2,327, which I think is about 25 a day. If I've got that completely wrong, someone will probably tell me. No, I think it's right. I reckon it's pretty close. So if you put that many people in a room or something, that's a big room, but it's like that many people just, as you say, for whatever reason, have gotten sick of my face or they followed me for a
Yep.
satisfying lawn stripe and then they saw me doing some tiling and they were like, nah, boring,
Yeah.
like whatever. But I mean, it's all relative. Like 24,000 follows, 2,300, that's, 10%. Ish. It's like, that's the difference between 2 unfollows and 20 follows a day when you've got
I take
300.
that.
And,
I'll take
but
that.
it's,
Yeah.
it's not something that I look at and go, I can't believe those 2,000 people.
You can't make
Oh
everybody happy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's something I've replied to people recently when I've been doing different, just DIY stuff. Like, I'm just a dad who just does DIY stuff, but where I've done something, it's carpentry wise or the deck that I built or whatever.
Yeah.
And people comment, is there anything you can't do? And my response is, please, everyone. You'll never do that.
Yeah.
You'll never do that. But yeah, and I think, it's to me, at the end of the day, it's all a bit of fun. And I don't know if one of your last questions is about the brand deals and how they work.
Mate, we
But
can keep going for
something
ages.
I'd love,
We're close to 2 hours already. We're an hour and 50
I'd love
minutes.
to
Let's talk about
touch,
brand deals.
but yeah,
So
because that's a part of the whole thing that is interesting as well.
let's start with this. Do you think the average contractor can get a brand deal? Right? Like, do you think that's possible? Those brands are interested in that, or like, is that something worth aiming for? If you're there might be people out there who want to get an ambassadorship with, let's say, Massport, because we talked about them before. Do you think that's realistic for most guys? Obviously, they've got to get the
Yes.
following, so you do think it is. And what sort of target? Let's put some real numbers in this. Where do you think it is in the real world where brands get interested in working with, businesses or Instagram people or whatever? Like, how many followers, how many views? Like, there's a spectrum clearly, but what do you think people should be aiming for?
Again, it probably, I don't know. You see people with 5,000 who have been given stuff. You see people with, a bit more than that. I had that big surge of followers, and I contacted Ego around that, the end of that
Yep.
viral thing, and was like, hey, like, I've seen heaps of your stuff and I'd love to use your stuff. And they gave me a line trimmer. Yeah, I mean, if you think of it as from the company's perspective, am I going to go out to someone with 200 followers and be like, hey, can you be an ambassador and share with your followers our brand?
So you're saying I don't have a chance, mate?
So, no, I am. I'm saying that.
Well,
but
that's it. I'm
again, like,
offended.
but with that too, like, for example, if next month I fell off the face of the earth with social media, but I've got an agreement with Hoselink to post a certain amount of content, and if in the month of August the only things posted on my page were those pieces of content for Hoselink, rightfully so, are going to be a bit like what's going on with the page?
Yeah.
Like, you don't post anything anymore. So I think there's probably some parameters that you'd have to tick off for a brand to be interested. Like, if you post 5 times in 2 days and then not again for 2 months, well, is a brand going to be interested in that? Probably not. And I think it comes down to a brand as to whether they, at the end of the day, brand deals, a brand is doing that because they want you to help them make money.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, something people need to keep in mind at the end of the day, in terms of valuing their time, valuing the audience that they've built. In terms of, if I explain a brand deal start to finish, it's like there's a lot of time in that people won't realize. And there's also been a lot of time. Like, if a brand comes to me now and says, hey, can you make a 2-minute video about X and post it? It's like, yes, that might take 2 minutes, but I have spent hours and hours and hours of time editing videos, replying to messages, and building that community, and doing that time to have the audience that I have to deliver this to. So, like, that should be acknowledged as well.
Well, I think the other reality is from anybody who's done Facebook advertising, right? So let's say 60,000 people. What would it cost to get your ad in front of 60,000 people? But it's not quite the same, because those 60,000 people are going to be suspicious of a random person ad on the internet, right? It takes a lot more to get them comfortable. Whereas if someone is a follower of Nick and Nick posts something out, it's like there's more interest in that because of the trust that they have with you and all that sort of stuff. And so I'm feeling, from a brand's perspective, tell me your insights on this. Like, how much of value do the smart brands, because some people just try and rip you off, right? But how much value do you think smart brands put on that side of things, where they're like, yeah, it's 60,000 people, but it's more than that? Like, do they have conversations with you where they sort of let some of that, I guess, let you inside their thought process a little bit?
Yeah, like, definitely some brands are a fair way. I think the lawn and garden industry as a whole is a long way behind other industries, like, say, finance, like, say, beauty, those kinds of things. Like gym apparel, gym supplements, and all that sort of thing. I was listening to a podcast with the Gymshark owner, it's a big brand, and he's like, early on we could just be like, here's some t-shirts, and people would put it on and be like, hey, look at this, 10, 15 years ago. But social media is such a different place now, and you can't just do that, I guess, in certain industries. But yeah, lawn and garden, like, different brands and companies put different amounts of value on this sort of marketing. Whereas, like, if I was a brand, would I put an ad on a radio show that has 100,000 people listening to it? Or would I come, put that money into the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast, which has got my target audience? That's my people, that's, that however many thousand, let's say it's 5,000. I'll take that 5,000 over 100,000 random people on the radio, who some of them might live in apartments, some of them, hate being outside. So it's about the quality of views and that sort of thing that you're getting as well, that I think, you go fast forward 5-10 years, I think more brands are going to become more clever with it, as they should. And some are a long way ahead and some are lagging behind for sure.
What would have given you the biggest, like what you know now, from, let's take Nick back to when he had about 10,000 followers. What's the biggest shortcut you could tell yourself from the Nick you are today that would have helped you with your understanding with brand deals? Because I'm sure, like everybody, you had misconceptions, you had ideas about what it might look like. So give us all those shortcuts and how we can think about it and ways we would go about it that you probably didn't quite get right at the beginning.
In terms of saving some frustrations and I guess some sort of difficulties,
Even
like
just understanding, just what's the word I'm looking for? Just misconceptions. Maybe it wasn't frustrating, but you just had an idea about what it might be like, and it was wrong, and maybe it didn't make or break anything, but just would have been helpful to understand that before we started.
yeah, I think it is good to understand, and every sort of deal in a way is going to be a bit different, and it depends. Like, is it a massive company that is selling worth millions and getting sold in Bunnings? Is it a small company like a little small business? Like those sorts of things are important as well as your own values. Do you just don't want to get caught up in that stuff? Like Ben said it, I believe, when he was on here as well, where he's like, he's worked with companies and brands and stuff, but he doesn't necessarily do one-off, sponsored posts and stuff. He did the auto mower, but he's not doing those little bits and pieces all over the place. So it depends. What do you want? What do you want out of it? What do you want to do? I think personally, I sort of fell into it a little bit. And I did contact Ego, and I was like, hey, like, I'd love to work with you guys, and I hear your stuff's awesome. And then come spring, Munns and Ryobi contacted me to be a part of their spring campaign. So like, hey,
Yes.
we want to work with you. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. And so then I've kind of gotten into that, and I think there's stuff that I can, bring value. But I think being really clear on what content you're going to deliver is important. So what are you going to get? What are you going to provide? And making sure that that's clear. Is it going to be, are you going to talk about it? Is it going to be an edit with music over the top? Like, what are you going to provide, I guess?
So more specific is better. Like, just instead of being like, oh, I post a reel, would you say, instead of just saying I post a reel, would you say, here's roughly how long it's going to be. I'm going to talk about it. This is sort of like how descriptive are you and how specific are you?
Yeah, I guess, well, sometimes that will come as well from the brand. They'll say that,
right, they'll ask you.
It needs with 30 to 60 seconds or whatever. They'll say that they want that or whatever. So yeah, sometimes it's very relaxed. And I've said to brands before, I'm like, do you want me to send you this for approval so that you can tick it off? Or, whereas some others are like, this must be sent to us and we're going to approve it and then come back to you and make. So I guess from the start there's the initial contact, and I've had times where I've contacted a brand, and probably more so in the balance where I've been contacted and they've said, hey, I want to work with you. And then it's, all right, what do you want? What are we promoting? Right. Is it a whippersnipper? Is it a fertilizer? Is it whatever? And then it's, a bit of back and forth, what are we doing? What's the rate going to be? What am I providing? How much content? And sorting that out. That could be 2 emails. It could be 15. So that's time there. And then there's actually getting the product, getting what it is, and then recording it, editing it, which, like that video from last night, where I'm talking and overlaying clips over the top of it and saying, I'm using this, doing a little seeding project here, not a branded one, but just a video. That probably takes half an hour, something like that. So those kind of ones, we're talking a bit of time. And then saving it, putting it into a Dropbox link, send it to the people. They come back to you and say, can you take this out? Can you change this? Whatever. And then there's like, all right, it's approved. You can post it, or we'd like you to post it at this day or between these dates for this certain thing.
For promotion or whatever they've got going on.
Yeah, and then, like, especially Ryobi and Munns was like their spring campaign. So they were like, we want all of this stuff in this period of time. So, yeah, sometimes there's formal contracts and, you agree to X, Y, Z. I guess they want to align themselves with someone as well who's not going to go out and go on some verbal tirade at, some sort of attack on people and be an unsavory character or whatever. But so there's certain things that you agree to. And I guess I've just found over the time that, I'm well aware of the facts. Some social media marketing people are probably going to listen to this, who I do work with, but I would say that...
Well, they're doing well if they got into... How long are we in? We just crossed 2 hours, so you can say whatever you want, mate.
Skip to the end. Yeah, no one's listening now.
Actually,
but I think...
to be fair, one of the things that we've been really blessed by is that a lot of people listen right the way to the end on these
retention
podcasts.
Rate.
Yeah, really good compared to what I've heard other people have. So,
keep. Hopefully, this is interesting. Quick, let me talk.
No, I'm in no rush.
Yeah, no. But yeah, so I think I have found in some cases, not all the time, but the marketing manager, the social media manager, they want to get maximum content for minimum spend. Like at the end of the day, that's what they want, because to them, to be able to put on their page or to reshare or to whatever, that's what they want. They want maximum marketing to sell their stuff. And that's something that I think, really need to keep in mind, is that if you are putting your name to something, you're taking out so much of your time to liaise, to record, to edit, to send off, to upload, to reply to comments, to help a company make money, then you shouldn't be sitting there with your $40 tool or your $20 t-shirt or your, $30 bag of fertilizer for your efforts, because to make them money, because that's just not fair, I think.
So, do you get a lot of people who just offer you rip-off stuff? Like they come in and they're just like, I'll give you $3.50 and a bag of Cheetos for 75,000 hours worth of content. Like, how bad? Tell us some of the bad stories. 'Cause I'm sure there's some tight asses. Don't name people. Like, we don't need to throw anyone on the bus. But like, what's a bad scenario where someone's come to you and you remember you're just like, this is a ridiculous offer?
There's been some bad ones, and some interactions where you can just tell they want content. They want you to shout them out. They want you to talk about it, and they don't want to pay. They don't want to acknowledge your time,
Right. So like nothing at all. They're just like, hey, would you post about us? And you're like, what do we get? A big cuddle. That's what you get. Like, not even that.
It's like, like if I came to you and I said, hey, Luke, like I've got these hats or beanies, and I'm a lawn care apparel company and I'm worth $10 million. Hey man, you got a podcast. I'm going to send you some hats. All right. And if you just want to wear them in the podcast, that'd be sweet. And you're like, oh yeah, all right. I'll put a hat on. And then they're like, hey, do you reckon you'd be able to send us some clips of you wearing the hat in the podcast, so that we can put it in our feed? Because you're, the biggest podcast in Australia, in the world. And, it's like, oh, he's wearing our hats and they can use that. And then, down the track, they're like, hey, man, we're going to send you some more hats. And these hats cost the brand $3. They're selling them for $20, but they cost $3.
Yeah.
And they're saying to you, hey, Luke, do you reckon you just be able to, just at the start or even at the end or something, do you reckon you just be able to say, and like, how good's my hat that I'm wearing and blah, blah, blah. And then you're starting to be like, you're starting to go, oh, like.
They're pushing the boundaries a bit there.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to, like, you're getting marketing out of this, because like it or not, people are, I'm wearing a Furphy beanie right now. Someone's probably watching this and going, oh, Furphy, I wouldn't mind a Furphy.
Well, now you mention them too. Quick, you better hook them up and say, I demand payment now. At least a 6-pack, all right?
Yeah. But, like that's, and so then you're going to start being like, oh, like I'm actually, the amount of people that are watching my podcast and, listening to me if they're on Spotify or whatever, and they're hearing me say, oh, LawnsInGoodNick hats, like how good are these hats? Like, you just love it. And you're saying to the guest, have you got one of these hats? You should get one. That's marketing. And I'm making money out of that. My brand is making money out of that. You've got $6 worth of hats and you're plugging and marketing for me.
Yeah.
I'm being sneaky. I'm trying to,
See.
get a lot out of you and take up your time to, hey, send me a clip or can you send me a Dropbox link? Like, that's time out of your day. That's your audience that you've built with this podcast and relationships over the years and time that you spend editing. Like, I should be saying to you, if I'm valuing you, I'm going to come to you and say, hey, Luke, I've got these hats. I'd really like you to wear them. If you can, just give us a little 5-second in the podcast. And I'm here today wearing my Lawns in Good Nick hat. Great stuff. Check them out. And we will acknowledge your time and your audience and all that sort of thing by making you an ambassador. And for that amount of content per podcast or whatever, you get X amount that we are going to invoice us and we're going to pay you because we're trying to make money off you plugging this product. And we care about that, or we value that.
Let's talk about the real numbers then. Like, I don't need to know exactly what you're earning. I'm sure it's somewhere between $10 and $50 million a week. No. No, now
keep going.
Keep going. Oh, whoa. No. Let's what I think would be helpful for the audience, and we probably have to finish on this really. What are we looking at here so far? How long have we been? 2 hours and 10 minutes roughly. Well, not quite.
Jeez.
2
I'm hungry.
Yeah. Time for a Furphy and a Zinger box, right?
Yeah.
I wonder how much.
Crap, you didn't hit record either.
No. I know where the record button is. I haven't screwed that one up yet. No. Here's the thing then for the average guy out there, because we could talk this stuff all week, right? Clearly, I mean we're already 2 hours in. But what amount of money could they expect? One, for let's say we've got someone around 10,000, say 10 to 20,000, so it's a realistic target for a small business to hit with a lot of work. But it's we're not going to, let's not say 100,000 because there's not many people who are going to get up to there. Right? Let's say you've got around 10 to 20,000. You're posting regularly. What could you expect money-wise in a ballpark, say for a reel, ballpark for a post, ballpark for a story or something like that? And maybe a range that you would think was somewhat realistic. Obviously, there's going to be a wide variety of changes between the brands and all that sort of stuff. But what would your experience dictate so that people can evaluate for themselves? Is it really worth it to go down this path for them, or is it more worth it for them just to mow more lawns,
Well, I would say, to go to your final point first, I think to me, it's like an extra bit of fun. And if you're a contractor, I don't know, it depends whether you try and do social. If you go to social media because you want just to make money out of it, your content's probably not going to be that authentic. And
I see.
It's sort of going to be a byproduct. If you make your account, if you listen to this and make your account tomorrow because you're like, I want to make $1,000 a post.
Yeah.
You're probably doing it for the wrong reason, and it's going to shine through in your content that you don't actually really enjoy making it. I think that's something to note. Look, in terms of actual figures, without like beating around any bushes, and don't take this as a 10,000 follower number and times it by 6 to get to 60,000. I think that's what I'm getting. But I would say if you've got 10,000 or so followers and you've got engaging content, I would think that a reel would be worth $300 to $500.
Right.
And whether that is figure minus product equals cash in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. But yeah, sort of a reel to me is the most potential for views.
Yep.
And really, if you talk to people that are in industries that are more progressed, it's like a reel plus a fee if you reshare that to TikTok, plus a fee if the brand uses that for their own marketing, if they put that in their own feed,
right,
to use that as their own promotion. A feed post, just a static photo or whatever, a lot less, probably say a third or around that range of your reel kind of number. Yep. And then a story probably a bit less than a feed post.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are people out there who have got, hundreds of thousands of followers who are making 4, 5, 6 grand for
Yeah,
a
crazy.
reel. Like Tim the Lawnmower Man is a guy who gets so many views. And at the moment, I've had a few phone calls and chats with him, and he's a great dude. And at the moment, he's wearing these fluoro shirts that just say Free Fridays on the back.
Yeah.
If I'm a brand, he gets millions of views. If I was a brand that had any sense, whether it's a fertilizer, a tool, a whatever,
Yeah.
I want my brand on the back of that shirt, because that shirt is being seen by so many people, and that's worth thousands. But at the moment, that's, just says Fremo Fridays or a lawn detailer on it, because, he'll get there, and he deserves it, because he has worked hard and put in that time and effort to build that audience to get those millions of views.
I think with him as well, like he's a very funny guy, but he's funny in the right sort of self-deprecating, very relatable way.
He's a marketing genius.
He's a marketing genius, right? Okay. No, I think he is. He's very smart, and he's not even a full-time gardener guy, isn't he?
He's a firefighter, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
he's
what
4 days on, 4 off, or like whatever it is. But
exactly. So he's obviously quite. He's over a few different what would you call it, fields, isn't he? Like he's got his firefighting, his mowing, and then his Instagram stuff. But he's a funny guy, and like the classic one that gets shared in the contractor pages over and over again is when skit about how when the lawn mowing man rocks up, everybody jumps out of the house to throws everything on the lawn.
Yeah,
it gets shared all the time on the lawn mowing contractors pages, and it's like, I couldn't make a video like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not wired that way. I'm way too boring. I'm way too I don't even watch drama, so it's like it's not my thing. And he's just nailed that so well that when he says something's good or something's bad, I'm interested. I want to hear what he has to say. So it's not just the views and how influential his numbers might be. The person he is trustable, relatable, like what we talked about with you, amidst faults, amidst flaws. It's just, those people are nice to have when you're scrolling Instagram,
Yeah, and people wouldn't realize some of the things that he's done. Like, he's posted some of the things where he's gone back and given back money to people that he's made money off that video with Facebook ads or whatever. But there's a lot more that people don't realize probably that he's done as well, that he's not out there like, I did this, But yeah, look, I think it's important with brand stuff to try and acknowledge when a brand is trying to take you for a ride. And I think there's, certain times where it depends on your own values and what you're, what you're getting in return as well, what you feel you might be getting in return. Like, I'm working with Ben and using his like lawn tips mix and everything like that. And he's certainly not paying me thousands of dollars, but I get so much back from him, and have had FaceTime calls where he's been helping me with YouTube stuff and, all that sort of stuff. And so if he gives me some free products, I know of lots of people who have bought Lawn Tips products because I'm using it. So he's definitely making a return. I know I'm getting stuff back from him as well in other ways. So yeah, it's. I don't want it to come across either. I hopefully have given a bit of an insight to it, but I could never make another cent off Instagram or a brand deal or whatever and just pay for my own stuff. And I'll still be on there, and I'll still be posting and still be doing stuff. To me, it's nice, especially now the fact that I'm stay-at-home dad. To be able to have that contribution to the household and be like, what, like, this can go to the side and go towards, a little
Zinger boxes.
Zinger boxes, Pepsi Max.
Yeah.
Well, my wife always leaves like 3/4 of a can. She'll open it, have 3 sips, and then if I don't see it and finish it, it's wasted money. So she needs to do a lot more loans to make up for that. But
we've talked about so many of her qualities that it's good to get the faults and flaws out. Somebody who doesn't drink a whole can of Pepsi Max clearly has issues.
Yeah. So look, I don't want people to think she's too good because, can't be wasting that nectar. But yeah, look, so it is nice. And it's nice if I can sit back at the end of the year and say, you know what, especially for all the time that goes into it, and, the effort that I've put to build an audience. I certainly, especially doing it now, when I see people doing branded stuff and whatever, I'll watch that whole video to help with their engagement. I'll like it. I'll comment and say, "It looks awesome," or whatever, especially when they've done a good job of it, and support that, because I'm like, you know what, like that, is important to you. It's going to help you keep doing what you're doing. And I mean, you're very open about it in the little spots that you do in the podcast where you're like, to help this podcast keep going, and the Patreon that you've started, like, I can do this, but I can't keep putting 15 hours a week to it. Like if you're doing 2 podcasts a week, I enjoy it, or I'm sure you enjoy it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're enjoying it and that sort of thing. But if you get to the end of the year and you've had a $5,000, $10,000 return, I don't know. It's nice to be able to say, you know what, like this financially for my time that I'm taking away from my family or from extra business time, to point to that money and go, you know what, like this was financially, I guess, worth it. And that's gone towards this as well. That's acknowledgement of your effort and the quality of what you've done.
I'll give a few updates because we do have to wrap this up, right? Where are we at? 2 hours and 18.
No one's going to listen to this.
I wonder what our attention will be at the end of this. So the people who are still here, they're going to get some little juicy nuggets that I guess no one else is going to hear. One of the things about the podcast is we actually look. Some people have joined on the Patreon. It is a lighthearted little thing. I would have put a little ad on it before, where it's you can either buy me a Pepsi Max or a Zinger box every month because I like that sort of stuff. We do need that support. We have got a sponsor, a very good sponsor, something that I'm very proud of. We could have tried to work with brands that were not as good of a fit for the market that we listen to, but this is something that's actually going to help people really well. And I think it's going to be so natural, right?
So it's not like eye cream and moisturizer or something like that?
No, it is eye cream and moisturizer.
Oh, this is awkward.
No,
this is awkward.
No. It's a lawn care brand. We're not going to talk any more about it. It's almost ready. But it's a company that's actually prioritizing small businesses and is creating something to help out with that. And it's somewhat actually near and dear to your heart, Nick. So you'll find about that soon. Near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. So look, that's
and do you know what, Luke? Like, you deserve it. You deserve that, because what am I, number 25-ish? Guess 20, is this episode 25?
You might be 20 actually.
20. So and like I listen to this podcast and I'm like, I genuinely, you release an episode and the next time that I'm painting skirting boards like I was yesterday, or I'm at the gym or whatever, like I look forward to it, and it's awesome, an enjoyable podcast to listen to. And so for the effort that you're putting into it and the time it takes, you deserve to be compensated and everything. Like,
well, thanks for the nice words. So we've got the Patreon there. If you guys like it, go jump on the Patreon, because
give Luke all your money.
All of the money, right? Buy me all the Pepsi Maxes. No, it's either $5 a month, or I think it's about $15 a month or something like that, which, is what, $5 a month is $1 a week or something. So if you guys are getting business value. But the other thing, which is the first time I've talked about this on the podcast, is, and I can't reveal too much more, but one of the reasons why I work so late at night, just about every night, is we're about to release something in roughly a month, which is a new business that will help small businesses. I can't say too much more. And I think it will potentially change for the better a lot of businesses out there. And that's really where my heart is with the podcast and everything else, because after 10 years in business, this is such a underrepresented industry. Like you even said with the advertising stuff, like it's so hard to run a small business in this industry. When we were up to, sort of 10, 11, 12, maybe 13 employees, we were one of the biggest residentially focused businesses in the country. And that is a tiny, tiny business. That is a nothing business, right? It's just so hard to grow. And we're going to release in this business some of the secret weapons we were using to get those numbers up and to help people with that. I won't say any more about it, but my heart is with the podcast is I wish I had this podcast. I wish I had these services that we're about to release. Because I love small business owners. I think they're underrated. I think I'd prefer at my own house a small business to be doing most of the work there rather than big businesses. But and I would love for people to be able to do what they love. Like this is what I hear with you as well. Like you've got a great opportunity where you've made your Instagram into something that allows you to spend time with your boys. We talked about in private about how teaching was becoming a difficult thing for you after a while. Maybe even a bit of a drain on your mental health, and a lot of people, they start their gardening business for that, and yet they struggle and they really can't maintain it because how difficult it is to run a business. And so I get a massive kick. It is like what you said, like you love your Instagram for just the fact of doing it, and having the money on the side is great. And you do need some compensation for that. Otherwise, you have to go back to teaching. It's the same here with the podcast. Like I love helping small businesses and gardeners get better results, grow in that. And obviously at some point you need money because I need Zinger boxes, right? And I'll die without enough Zinger boxes, right? I think that's how it works anyway. But I think brands, they want to get involved with people like yourself, and some of them with people like me because of that. But ultimately, it's not about the money. And I think that's why you come across Tim and Lawn Mowing Man, those sorts of guys come across so, even Ben himself, enjoyable, easy to get along with, easy to listen, generous people, all that sort of stuff. So look, we better wrap that up there.
Can there was only one more thing.
No, you can't say anything else. I just said we're wrapping it up.
Because I feel like at some point there, I was saying about, trying to get a lot of content out of you. There's just one thing that I didn't get an opportunity to say during the podcast. I wanted to say specifically about Daisy's garden supplies. They're a company that I worked with who are doing it the right way, because they contacted me and were like, we really want to work with you, or we want to work with you, blah, blah, blah. What does it look like? And I said, blah, blah, blah. And they said, look, tell us what it looks like. I gave them a range, and they actually came back to me at the top end of the range and said, all right,
awesome.
Per post, sounds good. Let's do that, minus what the product costs. And that's, whenever we work together, that's where we're at. And it wasn't like we'll just give you free delivery. That's just one thing. I didn't get an opportunity during the podcast. We talked about certain brands, but I just want to say about them in particular. And that's in a way of doing business. If you start and you do business, or you start an Instagram and you do things the right way, it shines through into what you do. If you're dishonest or you're a bit sneaky, it starts to show cracks. Yes. Whether it's you as an individual or you as a business, or if you're, dishonest. So yeah, just in terms of that, like being authentic in yourself, and that comes back to probably building a social media following, marketing your business on social media. Like the more genuine and authentic and valuing people's time and all that sort of stuff you are, the more successful you'll be, I think, and the more desirable, I guess, you'll be too. Just something I wanted to chuck in.
Well, one more thing I'll say is that, look, they just got some free, unless you're getting paid for that, but they got some free advertising there, didn't they? From being generous, from being nice to work with. Whereas the brands that you didn't mention that were difficult, they didn't get mentioned. We're not going to talk about their names. So it's funny. It's like, they were helpful for you, and you've actually, gone above and beyond as well. So it's just, and that always happens with businesses, and it's service based, whatever. If you go to your local KFC to get a Zinger box, and they give you a little freebie, you're going to tell your friends about it, aren't you? You go to a small local business, that's just.
Well, if you've got a difficult client, then you will do that mow and edge, and then you'll leave. But if I'm blowed out.
Yes.
But if you're, at someone's house and they're a fantastic client, they're awesome, and they bring you out, Pepsi Max, when you finish and they're lovely, you'll be like, that garden bed could use a tidy up, and you'll take 5 or 10 more minutes and do something nice. Like it just, Those
You
sorts of
do,
things, they just
100%.
shine through. But anyway, now it sounds like I'm trying to drag out the podcast. So
You just want to spend time with me, don't you? Sorry, I'm a married man, all right? Okay?
Golly. Yeah.
This is the
It's been
longest
fun.
podcast we've ever done. I don't mind. I'm glad we did it in the morning because it would have been harder for you to.
I honestly thought I wouldn't have anything to talk about. We'd be done in half an hour, and I'd be embarrassed because you'd go through the feed and be like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Oh, this Lawns and Good Nick guy was only on there for 32 minutes. He must be boring.
But we could easily go for another half an hour because look, we do have to wrap this up in a second. But one of the questions I was going to go through my Instagram feed and see what you actually thought about the podcast one. We're going to go through. Oh, look, there's a few things here, but we answered most of them actually just naturally through that. So, but yes, we'll have to look for those who are interested in this subject. I'm not going to name who it is because we once named somebody else in the podcast and practically things fell through. We will get them on one day, but I'm not going to say who is booked in for next week. But we have somebody else who is also good at Instagram next week, so we might bring some of these other subjects up. So if you guys are listening to this and you love this sort of stuff, tune in to the next episode. If you made it all the way to the end of this, well done. That's like running a marathon, all right? Like,
send me a DM and say, hey, I made it to the end.
Yes. Send me anybody who made it to the end of this podcast. Send me or Nick a message, and we will both reply. And I'll reply with a little video.
Send us a photo. Send us a photo of a Pepsi Max. That's exactly all you have to do. I just want to. Whenever this gets released, I just want at least 3 people in my DMs that have just a photo of a Pepsi Max. That's the thing. Show us your link.
All right. Talking about Pepsi Max, mine has gone straight through me and I really need to pee. Goodbye, people. See you in the next podcast.
I need lunch. Thanks for having me. Cheers, mate.